2 guards grabbed my arms and threw me out of the Yi family gate like a bag of trash. I hit the gravel road hard. My knees burned, my palms bled, and my cheap suitcase flew out after me, broke open, and spilled my old, faded clothes all over the ground. Inside the gate stood a woman in a fine dark purple robe. Yi Royun, the head of the Yi family, an S-rank mental power female, the genius everyone in the empire wanted. Her face looked a little like mine, but her eyes were cold, like she was looking at a broken tool. Double F-rank mental power. The Yi family does not need trash like you, she said in a calm, flat voice. Then she turned and walked away without even one more look. My head buzzed, and a flood of memories crashed into my brain. That was when I understood. I had crossed into another world, into this body. This was a beast world. Male beast men are born strong. They awaken powers, their bodies are hard as steel, and in beast form they can crush anything. But there is a flaw in their blood. Fighting drains their mental power, and once it breaks past the limit, they go mad. They turn into wild beasts, attack everyone, and rampage until they die. Females are the opposite. We have no fighting power at all, only the power to soothe. Our mental energy can pull a male back from the edge of madness. High-rank females can calm several males at once, so they are treasures of the empire. And females are rare, about 1 for every 300 males. By law, every adult female must take at least 3 beast husbands. S-rank females are fought over by every power. A-rank and B-rank live like queens. Even C and D live well. But F is a trash rank. And me, the original Yi Tang, was double F. Worse than trash. The old Yi Tang was tested at age 3, failed, and was dumped in a back courtyard for over 10 years, half-starved and ignored. Today, after the second test showed FF, the family threw her out at once, even though she was only 18, still a child by this world's rules. Her weak body could not take the shock. She died right at the gate, and I took her place. When the dizziness faded, I picked up my clothes, folded them, and tied the broken suitcase shut with a grass stem. Then I stood up, faced the huge bronze gate with its 5-tailed fox emblem, and raised my middle finger. What is wrong with double F? Back in my old world, I worked overtime every day for no money at all. Do not look down on a poor young female. Today you ignore me, but tomorrow you will not be able to afford me. Then I looked down at my skinny hands and patted my chest. And you useless thing. You got kicked out of the house and just died from it? Fine. This cheap body belongs to me now. After cursing the Yi family, I felt a little better. I picked up my broken suitcase and walked toward the edge of the city, where a huge dark forest began. At the forest edge stood a giant glowing notice board full of job ads. I was just passing by when the top notice made me stop dead. Prison Zero was hiring a warden. Any gender, any age, any mental power rank. Free food, free housing, 30,000 star coins a month. 30,000. A normal worker in this empire earns about 800 a month. This was a fortune. And free food and housing hit me like a bomb because I had no money and nowhere to sleep tonight. Of course, a deal this good meant the place was deadly. The message between the lines was simple. Come if you dare. The bigger the storm, the more expensive the fish, I muttered. Just then, a crowd passed by on the street. In the middle walked a female with fluffy orange cat ears. 8 or 9 male beast men surrounded her, holding her umbrella, carrying her fruit, clearing her path, like she was a superstar. By law, no male may ever harm a female, so they could only watch her with hungry, jealous eyes. I looked at her, then at my broken suitcase tied with a grass stem. I raised my head and howled at the sky. Heaven, you are not fair. People stared. I shrank my neck, embarrassed. But after 3 seconds of sadness, I marched to the board and tore off the route map to Prison Zero. The map made my mouth twitch. The prison was far, far away. I had to cross the whole forest. For 30,000 star coins, I gritted my teeth and walked in. The forest path was brutal. Twisted roots, soft rotten soil, dark air, and beast roars in the distance. This starved body had almost no muscle at all. Halfway through, My legs felt like lead, and I slid down against a big tree, gasping. This body is weaker than me in my old life, and I sat in an office all day. I complained. Did the Yi family raise her like a chicken? Too cheap to feed her one extra bite of rice. My stomach growled loudly. I was starving. Then I heard a thump. A gray wild rabbit lay by a tree root 3 steps away, legs twitching, then still. It had run headfirst into the root and killed itself. So the old story about waiting by a stump for a rabbit was real. I grabbed it fast. It weighed a good 3 or 4 pounds. Grandma Heaven, you do love me. My joy lasted 10 seconds. I had meat, but no knife and no fire. Was I supposed to eat it raw? While I stared at the rabbit, something moved deep in my mind, like a door being pushed open. In a flash, my mind stood in a strange square space, about 100 square meters, edged with soft white mist. There was an old stone well with clear, clean water. And in the center stood the small apartment I had worked myself half to death to buy in my past life. 35 square meters, 2 floors, 1 bedroom, 1 living room. I almost cried. I rushed inside. The living room was packed with supplies, all the things I had bought back when I was addicted to apocalypse novels and full of anxiety, always afraid zombies would surround the city one day. Back then I thought I was crazy for buying it all. Now, every bit of it was here in my space, quietly waiting to save my life. I dug through my supplies and found a brand new survival knife, a windproof lighter, and a full box of portable spices. Grandma Heaven, I said with shaking hands, you really do love me. With tools in hand, this was just a picnic now. I skinned the rabbit, cleaned it with the sweet well water, cut it into small pieces, and roasted them on sharpened sticks over the fire. Then I added salt, pepper, cumin, and chili powder. The moment the spices hit the hot oil, an amazing smell exploded into the air. The meat came out crispy outside and juicy inside. I took a big bite, and the flavor rushed straight to my brain. All the takeout food from my past life could not match this one bite. I wrapped the leftover half of the rabbit in clean leaves, set it on a rock beside me, and kept roasting the last skewer. The smell of my spices, a smell this world had never known, drifted deep into the forest on the wind. Meanwhile, far in the dark woods, a huge silver-gray wolf was running at full speed. His name was Eli, an S-rank wolf general, the youngest star of the Empire's army. But he was in terrible shape. His mind felt like burning needles were stabbing it, and his sanity was a rubber band about to snap. The law said any male past 70% mental collapse must be soothed by a female. He had pushed himself to 84. He refused the noble females as mother, and the army kept sending him. They smiled sweetly, but their eyes looked at him like a prize to collect. It made him sick. So he chose to go to Prison Zero instead, where his old commander, Marshal Jing Yao, was locked up for the same reason, refusing all soothing. At least no one there would look at him that way. He was only 50 kilometers from the prison when a smell stopped him dead. Roast meat, but not normal roast meat. Spicy, rich, and fresh, a smell that grabbed his soul. He had eaten burnt battlefield meat for years, and suddenly he felt he had wasted his whole life's tongue. He struggled for 3 seconds. Then the proud general made a shameful choice. He stayed fully in wolf form so no one could connect this big wolf to the famous General Yulai, hid his aura, and crept toward the fire like a ghost. Through the bushes he saw me, a skinny, dirty little female with a scraped knee, oil on my lips, eating with a happy face. And on the rock beside me, that golden, shiny packet of rabbit meat. Face or meat? He chose meat. A silver shadow shot out of the bushes. Before I could even react, it flew past me, snatched the wrapped rabbit right off the rock, and landed 3 steps away with a low whine in its throat. The whole thing took less than 2 seconds. I froze with my half-eaten skewer in the air, staring at the thief. It was a giant silver-gray wolf, twice as big as any dog I had ever seen, with shoulders up to my waist and claws like knives. It gulped down most of the rabbit in a few bites, chewed up the bones, then licked its lips with a satisfied look, the exact face of someone burned by spice but wanting more. Little greedy dog, I laughed. How many days have you been hungry? The wolf's ears twitched back. He was insulted. You lie, a pure-blood wolf, S-rank fighter, an imperial general, called a dog? But the taste in his mouth kept him quiet. Then he noticed something shocking. The sharp pain in his mind had eased. His collapse value had dropped from 84 to 83. One bite of meat did what the Empire's most expensive medicine and machines never could. He stared at me, confused. My mental power was so weak he could barely feel it, clearly trash rank. Yet my cooked meat worked better than the best therapy in the Empire. It made no sense. I had no idea what storm was going on in his head. I only cared about one thing. This dog was gorgeous. Thick silver fur glowing in the moonlight, jewel blue eyes, a big fluffy tail. In my old life, I loved two things: cooking and petting fluffy animals. I had membership cards at every cat and dog cafe near my home. But no dog on earth had a tenth of this one's beauty. I held out a raw skewer. Puppy, want more? He ignored the raw meat and stared at my spice bottles instead. So I crouched down, put out my open hand, and said sweetly, "Come here. Let me pet you, and I will roast meat for you. Do not worry, I will not hurt you. The golden retrievers at the cafe love me." He almost laughed. A tiny, weak female promising not to hurt an S-rank beast who could tear steel apart? But his legs moved forward on their own. He told himself it was for research, to test the meat's effect. Deep down, a small voice said her eyes were too pretty. My eyes held no scheming, no price tags, no title hunting. Just pure, clean liking. He had never seen that before, and he did not know how to handle it. Before he knew it, he was standing right in front of me. I touched his front leg and shivered with joy. The outer fur was rough, but the underlayer was soft like a warm cloud, with hot, strong muscle beneath. So cute! I hugged his neck with both arms and buried my face in his fur. He smelled like forest, moonlight, and cold wind. He went stiff. A female's hands were roaming all over him, bold and greedy, and somehow he did not mind at all. His tail wagged once before he forced it still, lifting his chin and squinting, trying hard to look cold and mighty instead of like a happy petted dog. But his ears betrayed him, flicking back when my fingers brushed them. "Your ears moved," I cried with delight. "So cute. Can I touch them?" I did not wait for an answer. A dog cannot answer anyway. The ears were thin and soft, covered in fine short fuzz. When my thumb rubbed the tip, they shrank back, shook 3 times, then slowly, shyly stood up again. The big dog looked down at the raw rabbit by his paw, then at my skewers, then gently pushed the rabbit toward me with the back of his paw, as if to say, "Make this one taste like the last one. You want to eat this?" I pointed at the raw rabbit. He nodded. A proper, serious nod, head bobbing up and down, ears bouncing. Of course he could talk. He could give war reports in 3 imperial languages. But this little female truly seemed to think he was a dog, and her petting felt nice, so he decided to keep playing dog. A great general acting like a puppy for roast meat? His soldiers would laugh until they quit the army. But no one was watching out here. I laughed and shook my spice bottle at him. "Fine, wait. I will cook for you." This time I roasted with extra care. Salt first, deep into the meat. Then pepper and cumin, popping in the heat. Last a handful of red chili powder, melting into the shiny oil. I turned each side slowly until it was golden, never burnt. He sat beside me, eyes locked on the fire. His nose was even sharper in wolf form, and the smell attacked him without mercy. When had he last smelled anything this good? Never. Army food was nutrient-paced and black bread. This one skewer crushed his last 27 years of eating. I blew on the cooked skewer and held it out. "Here, careful, it is hot." He finished the whole thing in 2 bites, bones and all, crunching loudly. Then he lifted his head and stared at me. His blue-gray eyes clearly said, "Still hungry." I spread my hands and pointed at the pile of clean bones. "There is no more. I found only 1 rabbit. I ate half, and the other half is already in your belly." Then I did the math. "Wait." He stole my first half, and these skewers were my leftovers too. I had worked all this time just to feed a dog. Oh well. I was full anyway, and this dog was just too handsome. His tail drooped. He turned and slipped silently into the trees. I jumped up and chased 2 steps. Hey, puppy, only wind and insect sounds answered. I stood by the fire feeling strangely empty, then laughed at myself. Right. A wild animal got his food and left. I stamped out the fire and bent down for my things. Then the bushes shook. The big silver dog walked out with 3 fat rabbits in his mouth, each one held carefully by the neck, not a single tooth mark on their fur. He laid them neatly at my feet and looked up at me, tail giving a small wag. Wow. You are amazing. I dropped down and rubbed his wolf face with both hands. You scared me. I thought you left for good. His face squished between my fingers while his cool eyes stayed calm, half helpless, half funny. Left for good? He had just decided to follow her, and she thought 3 rabbits were his goodbye gift? Still, seeing her this happy, he did not hate it. He sat quietly and let me rub him as long as I wanted. I checked the rabbits. Fat, smooth fur, 3 or 4 pounds each, and not one bite wound. This dog's control was scary good. All right, I rolled up my sleeves and pulled out my knife and spices. You caught them, you paid the food. I will cook. How can I say no to a fluffy request? I worked fast, skinning, cleaning, cutting, and lit the fire again. He lay beside me, watching. I mumbled to myself about finding a grill in my space, about the chili powder running low, about how honey glaze would taste even better, then hummed a light little song from my old world. He rested his chin on his paws and watched me quietly, thinking this beat chewing army rations in the north by 100 miles. Almost all 3 roasted rabbits went into that dog's belly. I watched him crunch through meat and bones, lick his lips, and then glance at the last half skewer in my hand. I stuffed it into my mouth fast and raised my hands. It is gone. Really gone. 3 rabbits, all in your stomach, and I only got a small bite. How dare you look at me? He calmly looked away and licked his paw, pretending not to hear. After eating, I put out the fire, stored my suitcase in my space, and kept walking. Food gave me some strength, but this weak body was hopeless. 20 minutes later, I was gasping, legs shaking like lead. The sky was turning orange, and the forest was getting darker and colder. I could not spend the night here, but my legs refused to move. I slid down against a tree to rest. When I opened my eyes, that handsome wolf face was right in front of me. I jumped and banged my head on the trunk. Do not sneak up so close. He had been following me the whole time, watching me pant after every few steps. Behind those calm eyes, he was shocked. Even office females at his northern base could march 10 kilometers without losing breath. I was like a doll made of glass. I sighed and tried to reason with this smart dog. Puppy, stop following me. I cannot even feed myself. I cannot afford to keep you. My family just threw me out. I have no money and nowhere to sleep tonight. You are a good dog, handsome, great at hunting. The forest is your home. Do not suffer with me. He almost laughed out of anger. This female wanted to raise him? He was the young lord of the Wolf clan, a general, richer than she could imagine. She did not even know where she would sleep, yet she worried about feeding a dog. Her family threw away someone this silly? Fine. They did not want her. He did. Not want. Protect. Yes, protect. Every female was under imperial protection by law, and any officer had a duty to guard a female traveling alone. He gave himself this very noble excuse and decided not to ask why it came so easily. I showed him my map and pointed at the red circle. See? Prison 0. Very far. Over that mountain. I can barely walk myself. His ears twitched at those words. Prison 0 was his own goal. Tonight he had planned to lock himself inside, like his old marshal, rather than accept the soothing of scheming noble females. Fate had led him to a smell of roast meat, and to me. Since we were going the same way, perfect. He stood up, stepped forward, turned his back to me, and looked over his shoulder. The meaning was clear, get on. I froze. Not because I did not want to, but because something hot was stuck in my throat. Today my own family threw me out like trash, and not one person looked back. And now a wild dog I met half a day ago hunted rabbits for me, followed me, and offered to carry me. A dog cared about me more than the Yi family ever did. I blinked the tears back, stood up, and patted the dirt off. You sure? I am skinny, but I am still an adult. Do not push yourself. My hands were already on his back as I said it. He let out a soft snort that clearly meant, "Who do you think you are talking to?" I climbed on. His fur was thick and warm like a heated blanket. "All right," I whispered by his ear. "Let us go, big puppy." His ear trembled at my breath. He repeated to himself 3 times, "She thinks I am a dog," then ran toward Prison Zero. He kept his speed low on purpose, afraid of shaking my weak body, yet the trees still flew past and the night wind roared in my ears. I pressed my face into the soft fur of his neck and laughed quietly. This morning I was thrown face first onto gravel. Tonight I was riding a giant silver wolf through an ancient forest to apply for a prison job. What a crazy life. "Thank you, puppy," I murmured. His ear flicked again, and his steps never stopped. The gate of Prison Zero was scarier than I imagined. A gray-black metal door over 10 meters tall, watchtowers with glowing blue energy cannons, and 4 armed guards in black uniforms watching everything like hawks. I slid off the wolf's back with numb legs and limped to the guard post, the big silver wolf following behind me. "Stop," a guard said, eyeing my faded old clothes and the huge wolf behind me. "This is a military zone. No outsiders." "I am not an outsider." I showed him the job notice. "I came to apply." He stared at me like I was joking. "This skinny little female, apply at Prison Zero?" But he spoke into his radio, then suddenly turned polite. "Colonel Liu, you will see you. Straight down the main road, 3rd floor, last office." The heavy gate opened just wide enough for 1 person. I walked in, and the wolf slipped in beside me. His eyes turned sharp the moment we entered, silently scanning the gun posts, the patrol routes, and the hidden cameras. His paws made no sound at all on the metal floor. I found the office. The sign read, "Liu Yu, Imperial Colonel, Acting Warden of Prison Zero." "Come in," said a calm male voice, smooth as warm water. I pushed the door open and froze for 2 full seconds. Behind the desk sat a young male in a crisp white military shirt, gold-rimmed glasses on a fine nose, soft flax-colored hair, and gentle honey-colored eyes. But none of that mattered. What mattered was on his head. Antlers. A pair of deer antlers, warm ivory white like polished jade, each branching into 3 elegant points. My eyes glued onto them and would not come off. My brain flooded with wild questions. What do they feel like? Smooth or rough? Warm or cool? Would the little ridges feel like walnut shells under my fingers? And he is so handsome with those glasses. No, wake up, Yi Tang. You are here for a job, not to pet a deer." He clearly noticed my staring but was used to it. He just pushed up his glasses and opened my file. "Yi Tang, 18 years old," he read flatly, then his finger paused. "Mental power. F." He looked up at me, not mocking, just honestly checking if he had read it wrong. I was already sore about this topic. "Did the job notice say F cannot apply?" He paused, checked his own notice, and admitted, "No. I've just never seen a F female." My face went dark. What am I, a rare panda? I took a deep breath and gave him my best fake office smile. "Well, now you have." He did not push it, but he was not done either. "Do you know what Prison Zero is?" "A prison," I said instantly. He went quiet for 2 seconds. I swear I saw despair in those honey eyes. Then he spoke slowly, like teaching a new soldier. "This is no normal prison. Every prisoner here is a male beast man with a collapse value above 85. They can go mad at any moment. Even the cooks and clerks here need at least B-rank mental power because the pressure of this place itself is crushing. Do you understand? A prison for dangerous criminals," I summed up helpfully. He pinched the bridge of his nose. His glasses went crooked, and a few strands of hair slid down against his antlers. He looked at me with a genuine headache. Just as he was about to try again, his eyes caught the doorway. The silver wolf sat quietly half a step behind me, staring at him without blinking. His fingers froze on the keyboard. Of course, he knew this wolf. General Yulai, first heir of the Wolf clan, missing for 3 days after refusing forced soothing. The whole army was searching for him. The warden had even been warned that if the general went mad, he might charge at Prison Zero, following his old marshal's path. And now this missing S-rank general was sitting in beast form behind a double F female, quiet as a bodyguard, his blue-gray eyes sending one clear warning: do not make trouble for her. Louis looked away casually and adjusted his glasses. Interesting. A trash-rank female thrown out by her family, guarded willingly by the Empire's youngest S-rank general. Colonel, I waved my hand in front of him. Are you hiring or not? If not, I am leaving. It is dark and I still need to find a place to sleep. He came back to himself, looked at my honest eyes, then at the silent guard behind me, and suddenly his mouth curved into a faint but real smile. Louis stood up, put on his military coat, and walked to the door. Come, I will give you a tour. His voice was calm, almost amused. The wolf behind me saw right through him. This sly deer was planning to scare me into quitting once I saw the prisoners. But he might have picked the wrong person. Louis led us through long hallways to a heavy security door. He pressed his palm on the scanner, and the cold electronic voice confirmed his identity. As we walked, he gave me a warning. Since this prison was built, it has had 147 wardens. The longest-serving one was an S-rank female. She lasted 3 months before a bear-beast man with a collapse value of 97 shattered her mental power beyond repair. Most of the rest quit within a week. In the past 2 months alone, over 20 wardens have already left because of the prisoners in the S observation wing. He opened the last door. Inside was a curved hallway with transparent walls half a meter thick. Behind each wall was a separate holding area. He pointed to the first room. A white tiger lay on a huge stone platform, my feet nailed to the floor. This tiger was more than twice the size of any Siberian tiger I had seen on Earth. Snow-white fur with pale gray stripes and thick pink paw pads hanging off the edge of the stone, round and soft-looking. Imperial 3rd Army Marshal, Jing Yao. White Tiger Clan. S-rank. Collapse value 89. I pressed my hands on the glass and nearly stuck my whole face against it. A big cat. A huge, gorgeous cat. Back on Earth, I dreamed of having one, but the law said no and my salary said no. The second room was dark. A black panther curled in the shadows, fur so black it shone blue. Muscles sleek and deadly, like a sheathed blade. Chief Strategic Commander, Han Zhou. Black Panther Clan. S-rank. Collapse value 91. The third room had an open dome with a fake night sky. A massive falcon stood below, wings spanning 6 or 7 meters, feathers striped in deep gray and silver. Young Lord of the Sky Feather Falcon Clan Ling Shou. S-rank. Collapse value 88. The fourth room was hot. Dry heat rolled through the air. On a scorched stone mountain perched a huge crimson bird, its tail feathers 3 or 4 meters long, glowing gold and red. Even with its eyes closed, the heat made the observation wall warm to the touch. Young Lord of the Vermilion Bird Clan, Chi Hung.
S plus rank.
Collapse value 93. The last room was a giant pool. Deep in the water lay an enormous shape. A merman. Sea Abyss Royal Family, Song Ming. Merman. Collapse value 95. Lu Yu paused, frowning slightly. He has not surfaced for 11 days. Merfolk can breathe underwater, but after 2 weeks without surfacing, his lungs will start to fail. Lu Yu turned around, ready to see fear or retreat on my face. He had even prepared comforting words. Then he saw my expression. My eyes were blazing like 2 searchlights. White tiger, black panther, falcon, vermilion bird, merman. Any one of these was a creature I could only dream about on Earth. Big cats, giant raptors, a mythical firebird, and a real living merman. Back home, I spent 7 years writing code, staring at a screen, and the only pet I ever had was a gecko that crawled through my window. I named it Coder Number 1. It ran away the next day. Now I could take care of 5 of them, each one rarer and more beautiful than the last. Free food, free housing, and a huge salary on top. This was not a job posting. This was a VIP ticket to paradise. They're only sedated right now, resting in beast form. Lu Yu warned me, his voice heavier. Do not be fooled by how they look. Every one of them is S rank or above. If any of them wakes up, the mental pressure alone would knock an A rank female unconscious on the spot. My eyes were still glued to them, but my mouth answered on its own. Boss, do not worry. This job is mine. Nobody better try to take it from me. Luyu went quiet. He had seen wave after wave of applicants. S-rank soothers recommended by the military, B-rank specialists screened by human resources, all walking in full of confidence and carried out white-faced. He once saw a D-rank female break down crying and shaking on the floor just from the spiritual pressure at the door. But this double F female had not changed color once since she walked in. Worse, she was wearing an expression he had only ever seen on male beasts during mating season, extreme excitement with a slightly creepy edge. Luyu pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses, swallowed everything he wanted to say, and nodded in surrender.
Fine.
Come sign the contract. Back in the office, Luyu pulled up the electronic contract. I skimmed it fast. Position warden. Salary. 30,000 star coins per month. Free food and housing. 1 month trial period. My job was to manage the daily operations of Prison Zero, including the prisoners' meals, living conditions, and mental state monitoring. I noticed the contract said nothing about mental power soothing, which was fine by me. I did not know how to soothe anyone. All I knew was cooking and petting fluffy things. Sign here. He handed me a digital pen. I signed without a second thought. Where do I live? I asked the moment I put the pen down. He led me through the building to the living quarters behind the prison. This area was much warmer than the cells, with carpet on the floor and landscape paintings on the walls. He stopped at a door and pushed it open. Behind it was a small 2-story house with a tidy living room, marble kitchen counter, sofa, bookshelves, a big window facing a little yard, and a bedroom upstairs. In my old life, I wrote code for 7 years and could only afford a tiny 35-square-meter apartment in the suburbs. On my first day in this beast world, I was living in a whole house. This is the warden's quarters. Your predecessor left in a hurry, Luyu said, handing me the door card. Your main job is simple. The Imperial Logistics Department delivers nutrient solution every day. You deliver it to each observation cell on time. Use the transfer slot on the lower right side of each wall. Do I need to cook? I asked. He looked at me like I had said something strange. Cook? Warden Yi, did your family never give you nutrient solution? That was when it clicked. I searched the original owner's memories. In this world, commoners just boiled meat or roasted it with coarse salt. Richer beast men might boil a pot of soup with some plant roots, and that counted as a feast. The Empire's nutrient solution was a dense, concentrated formula. 1 small tube gave a full day's calories. It tasted bland and bitter, but it was efficient. Eating nutrient solution was a status symbol. Only poor people who could not afford it bothered with primitive cooking. Of course, the Yi family never gave the original me any. I shook my head. Colonel, you already know I am double F. They would never waste nutrient solution on me. Luyu went quiet for a moment. He did not ask more and showed no pity. He just nodded and moved on. He pulled out a black card with Prison Zero's emblem on the front and a gold code on the back. This is your access card. It opens every door in the main building, including the observation wing. But remember, if you want to live long enough to collect your first paycheck, never enter an observation cell while any prisoner is awake. Deliver nutrient solution through the transfer slot only. I took the card and turned it over a few times. Then something came to mind. Boss, that merman you mentioned, Song Ming. 11 days without surfacing. His face turned serious.
Yes.
Even the Sea Abyss royal bloodline cannot go past 14 days without breathing surface air. After that, his lung tissue will be permanently damaged. The last warden tried to swim down to him and got blasted back by his mental force field. She spent 3 days in bed recovering. You do not have to push yourself. This is not your responsibility. Got it, boss. Mission accepted. I stood up straight and answered loud and clear. He swallowed the rest of his words. He stared at me for a moment, then decided not to question the logic of a double F female approaching an SS rank merman. Maybe once I actually stood at the pool's edge and felt that pressure, I would back off on my own. He called for a guard, who brought 2 sets of warden uniforms. Dark blue, clean cut, with the Prison Zero badge on the shoulder. He handed them to me. Get familiar with the place tonight. You start officially at 8 tomorrow morning. I held the uniform and rubbed the badge with my thumb, already planning how to get friendly with those 5 tomorrow. Luyu turned to leave and came face to face with the silver wolf still sitting silently at the door. The wolf's cold blue-gray eyes stared at him with a sharp, controlled warning that clearly said, "Were you trying to scare her away?" They locked eyes for 1 second. Then Luyu turned to me with a perfectly calm voice, as if mentioning something tiny. "By the way, Warden Yi, this husky of yours. Take good care of it." "Husky?" I looked at the wolf and laughed. "He is not mine. I picked him up in the forest. He followed me here on his own." I crouched down and rubbed his neck fur. "But do not worry, Colonel. He is very well behaved. He even hunts. He will not cause any trouble." The wolf half closed his eyes when I rubbed him, but the second he caught Luyu's gaze, his eyes went cold again. Slowly and silently, his lips formed one word behind my head where only Luyu could see it. "Shut up." Luyu pushed up his glasses. The corner of his mouth bent just barely, so faint you could almost miss it. He said nothing, turned and walked away, his straight white uniform disappearing down the hall, the shadow of his antlers stretching long against the wall like 2 elegant branches. The door closed. I threw the uniform on the sofa, dove onto the big wolf, grabbed his furry head with both hands, and squeezed it hard. "Big puppy, did you hear that? I have a job. 30,000 a month. We will never go hungry again." He let me squish his face out of shape without pulling away. But his mind was on other things. Luyu knew who he was, yet chose to keep his secret in front of me. What was that white-tailed deer planning? Still, there was a more pressing question. His eyes moved from the contract I had just signed back to my excited, flushed face. This silly female. Did she have any idea what kind of monsters she had just agreed to take care of? After Luyu left, I threw the uniform on the sofa and collapsed on the carpet like a starfish, staring at the ceiling. Too much had happened in one day. Transmigration, getting thrown out, catching a rabbit, picking up a giant dog, riding a wolf through a forest, and landing a job as a prison warden. My brain was like an old computer with too many programs running. But I had a lifelong habit. When things got messy, just work. Work calms me down, especially farming. I closed my eyes and sent my mind into the space. The old well, the little apartment, and all that empty land around it. I looked at the dark brown soil and remembered something. Back in my doomsday prepper phase, I had not just hoarded food. I had bought a pile of vegetable and fruit seeds too, thinking I would need vitamins if zombies took over. The apocalypse never came, but now those dusty seeds were my treasure. I dug through the apartment and found them under the bed. Green onions, garlic sprouts, lettuce, tomatoes, chili peppers, strawberries, watermelon, and even a pack of catnip. The catnip was a random impulse buy, but the first thing I pictured when I saw it was that huge white tiger in cell number 1. I carried the seeds to the empty field. Before I could even plan where to plant what, the soil sensed my thoughts and moved on its own, rising into neat rows and dividing itself into equal little plots, exactly like a farming game. I planted everything in order, gave the catnip the best sunny spot, watered it all with well water, and stood back feeling deeply satisfied. When I came out, the doorbell rang. The logistics team had delivered the daily nutrient solution. I opened the door and found a silver box with 6 tubes inside. 5 were gold-colored, labeled S-Rank Special Supply. The 6th was plain silver, labeled simply, Original Flavor. I picked up the silver one and twisted it open. It smelled like nothing, just faint oatmeal mixed with metal. I took a tiny sip. I froze. It tasted like someone mixed flour and water into a half-cooked paste, removed everything that could create any flavor, and stirred in a spoon of plain protein powder. Not disgusting enough to vomit, but so empty and soulless that it made me question the meaning of being alive.
Paste. Pure paste.
I covered my mouth, fought with everything I had not to spit it out, and ran to the sink to rinse 3 times. People eat this? What kind of miserable life does this empire live? Maybe the original flavor was just bad. I grabbed one of the S-Rank tubes. Label said sweet flavor. I took a sip. 3 seconds later I was back at the sink. It was paste with sugar dumped in. Not good sweet. Industrial, throat-burning, cheap sweetener sweet. I screwed all the caps back on, put them in the box, and officially surrendered. A soul raised on milk tea, hot pot, barbecue, and spicy noodles could never bow to nutrient paste. I opened my space and pulled out my treasures, a portable gas stove from a sale, and a brick of Chongqing beef tallow hot pot base. I had panic bought 20 packs of that base, terrified the apocalypse would come before I could eat hot pot again. I set the stove on the kitchen counter, lit the flame, and dropped the base into a small pot. As the dark red tallow melted, Sichuan peppercorns, chilies, star anise, and cinnamon exploded with fragrance. The whole kitchen filled with that powerful, throat-burning, beautiful smell. I almost cried. I pulled some baby green onions and garlic sprouts from the space garden, sliced half a can of Spam, tossed in some rehydrated wood ear mushrooms, and threw in an instant noodle cake. 3 minutes later, I sat at the table with a steaming bowl of spicy mini hot pot, slurping noodles and soup, and felt my life was complete. Then I noticed something odd. The hot pot base wrapper I had tossed in the trash can was gone. The bin was empty. I tested it again, threw in a used tissue, focused my mind, and checked the space. Inside the storage shelf, a brand new, sealed pack of the hot pot base sat right where the used one had been. I really am heaven's chosen one. I stared at that magically restocked pack in awe. I checked the garden too and froze again. The catnip I had planted less than an hour ago was already over 10 centimeters tall, with bright green leaves and that cool minty smell. The lettuce and tomatoes had sprouted. The onions and garlic had shot up. From seed to sprout in 1 hour. Accelerated farming and automatic restocking, I muttered, poking a catnip leaf. This is top-tier transmigration equipment. I harvested some catnip, pulled a few onions and garlic sprouts, washed them at the well, and stored them fresh. After a whole afternoon of work, this malnourished body finally gave out. I yawned, barely managed a 2-minute shower, pulled on pajamas, and fell into bed. The mattress was soft, the pillow was perfect, and I was asleep the second my head touched it, still smiling. That night, the big wolf lay on the carpet outside my bedroom door. He was not sleeping. After my 2 meals of roast meat, his mental collapse value had dropped from 84 to 77. 7 whole points. The best A-rank soother the army ever sent him could only manage 3 to 5 points, and that required him to relax and enter a half-sleep state. All he did was eat my food. Even stranger, when he chewed a small bundle of the catnip I had grown, a cool feeling slid down his throat and something deep in his mind gently loosened, like tangled knots coming undone on their own. He had not felt this comfortable since he was 12 years old and sent to the battlefield. He lifted his head and looked through the half-open door at me curled up on the bed, sleeping with a smile on my face. "Silly female," he whispered so quietly only he could hear. "Do you even know what kind of hot potato you picked up? The 5 prisoners in this place were all Empire-level weapons and Empire-level time bombs." Marshal Zhang Yao once flipped an entire training field when he lost control. Han Zhou's mind web could strangle every living thing in range. Ling Shou could punch through S-rank shields diving from the sky. Qi Heng could turn hundreds of meters into scorched earth. And Song Ming the Merman was the most unfathomable of all, one of only 3 SS-rank fighters in the whole Empire, unbeatable in water. Every one of them had a collapse value above 88. And the person assigned to take care of them was a double F female who got winded after walking a few steps and still smiled after being thrown out of her own home. He rested his chin on his paws, eyes half closed in the dark, every sense on high alert. Tomorrow she would officially start work. He would follow her and protect her. The next morning, my spirit farm woke me up. The catnip was already lush and thick. The onions and garlic had shot up again, and the lettuce and tomato sprouts were spreading their leaves. I jumped out of bed, washed up, put on my new uniform, and pushed the meal cart to the prep room. 5 S-rank nutrient tubes were already waiting, each a different flavor. Green for herbal, yellow for grain, pink for berry, brown for meat, blue for seaweed. I picked one up and snorted. No matter how fancy the labels, they were all just different flavors of paste. Salty paste, sweet paste, slightly fishy paste. I loaded them into the cart, then opened my space and pulled out a big handful of fresh catnip from the garden. I also dug out some silver vine sticks from my apartment storage, something I had impulse bought once, supposedly irresistible to cats. I tied the catnip and silver vine into 5 little bundles, each one dewy and fragrant, and set them on the top shelf of the cart. Might as well try everything, I muttered and turned to check the bottom drawer. In that 1 second, a silver shadow glided up to the cart. The wolf's tongue shot out, snatched 1 bundle of catnip, and retreated to the corner to chew. By the time I turned back, 5 bundles had become 4, and the big wolf was sitting in the corner, casually wiping leaf crumbs from his mouth with 1 paw. I stared at the cart, then at him. I burst out laughing. Little greedy dog, you like it too. His ears flattened back and his eyes suddenly found a crack in the wall, very interesting. His face said it was not me, but the half-chewed leaf sticking out of his mouth told the truth. I walked over, crouched down, and rubbed his head from ear to neck. If you like it, I have plenty. The catnip in my garden grows like weeds. A new batch every few hours. You could eat it for the rest of your life and never run out. His tail tip swayed once. Since he started pretending to be a dog, it seemed like he needed to pretend less and less. I added a replacement bundle to the cart and pushed it toward the observation wing. My steps were steadier than yesterday. The wolf followed close behind, every muscle tense with alertness. He knew exactly how dangerous those 5 were when awake. He was ready to throw himself between me and any opening door at a moment's notice. I pushed the meal cart to the first observation room. The white tiger marshal was lying on the ground with his eyes closed, but the second the delivery slot opened, his nostrils flared. He smelled the catnip mixed in with the nutrient tube. He grabbed the green bundle, chewed it, swallowed, and his pupils went wide for a moment. Something loosened deep inside his mind. His collapse value dropped from 89 to 86. He stood up and walked to the glass wall, his amber tiger eyes watching my small figure push the cart to the next room. The Black Panther in room 2 was even sharper. He had planned to barely touch today's nutrient paste, but when the catnip smell drifted through the slot, he rose like a flowing shadow, picked up the bundle, and chewed it in silence. Then he stood perfectly still, his pale gold panther eyes locked on my back through the glass. The falcon in room 3 spotted the green bundles from the air with his incredible eyesight. He was a bird, not a cat, and he was not sure the grass would do anything for him, but the other 2 had eaten it, so he
Dove down and snatched a share.
He chewed, swallowed, paused. Then he folded his wings and perched on the rail, silver-gray hawk eyes fixed on me without blinking. 88 dropped to 85. The vermilion bird in room 4 stood on a scorched mountain, radiating heat. He looked confused at the catnip, since birds and cats have different needs, but the first 3 had all eaten it, so he grudgingly pecked a small bite. He froze, looked at the grass, looked at me in the hallway, then finished every last leaf. He jumped down from his mountain and walked to the glass. I did not notice any of this. I was standing at the door of room 5, frowning at the huge pool. Luyu had asked me to pay special attention to Tsang Ming. As a worker forged by years of obeying bosses and clients in the 21st century, when the boss gives a special instruction, I deliver.
No shortcuts.
And my target was lying at the bottom of the pool, completely still. His merman form floated in the deep water, his massive tail shimmering from dark blue to silver white, pale green scales covering his muscular upper body, long seaweed-like hair drifting silently. It would have been the most popular exhibit in any aquarium, but all I cared about was his breathing. Day 12 without surfacing. 2 more days, and his lungs would be permanently damaged. I pressed the intercom and yelled into the pool. Tsang Ming.
Come up.
Time to eat. The water did not even ripple. I yelled twice more. Nothing. The delivery slot in this room connected to a floating platform on the water surface. If he would not come up, the food would just sit there untouched. I took a deep breath and pushed open the security door. Behind me, things happened fast. In room 4, the vermilion bird dropped the leaf from his beak. In rooms 1 and 2, the white tiger and black panther both froze at the glass. The falcon's eyes went round. My big wolf lunged forward and grabbed my pants leg with his teeth, pulling me back gently, but clearly saying no. It is fine. I crouched and patted his head. I will just look. If he is awake, I will come right out. The wolf let go, not because he was calm, but because he calculated that Song Ming, being underwater and the only sea creature here, was the hardest to accidentally wake. He followed me through the door, muscles locked, ready to snatch me away at the first sign of trouble. The observation room was cold and smelled of salt water. The pool was deep and wide, and I could see the mermen suspended at the bottom, perfectly still. Then I pulled a large fishing net out of my space. The wolf's eyes went huge. He had seen me pull spices and blankets from thin air in the forest, so he knew I had some kind of storage ability. But a fishing net? What was I going to do with a fishing net? I measured the merman by eye. Even in his compressed resting state, he was over 2 meters long. My oversized scoop net was something I had bought during an online sale just to hit the free shipping minimum. I had never expected to actually use it. I gripped the metal handle, lowered the net carefully into the water, and aimed it at Song Ming. I could not fish with a rod, but scooping was my specialty. In college, I once scooped 7 goldfish for 10 yuan at a carnival game, the best score in my whole class. At the bottom of the pool, Song Ming was fighting a war inside his own mind. His collapse value of 95 meant his mental space was a spinning storm of broken glass, every piece crashing and tearing. He had stayed underwater for 12 days on purpose. He was too proud to let anyone see him lose control and too stubborn to accept anyone's soothing. He planned to tough it out alone. Then he felt something wrap around him.
A net.
From above. He looked up and could not believe his eyes. A small female in a dark blue uniform stood at the edge of the pool, gripping a metal pole longer than his arm, the net snug around his body, pulling with all her might. Her face was red from the effort, but her eyes were dead serious, and she was mumbling something about client requirements, performance targets, and must complete the mission. His brain shut down for a moment. He was royalty of the deep sea, one of only 3 SS rank fighters in the entire empire, absolute ruler of the ocean. The last time anyone handled him like this, he was a baby being scolded by his elders. And this female's mental power was so weak it barely existed. How did she dare walk in here? What kind of brain decided to scoop him with a fishing net? I dragged the net to the edge with everything I had, and with a big splash, pulled his upper body above the surface. Wet hair clung to his face and shoulders. Water rolled down his pale green scales. His deep ocean blue eyes stared at me, unblinking. Not angry, not murderous, just pure, intelligent confusion. Are you serious? There we go, good boy. Before he could react, I grabbed his chin, poured the seaweed-flavored nutrient tube into his mouth, then stuffed a bundle of catnip and silver vine in after it. He chewed and swallowed on reflex, and then tasted the strangest thing in his entire life. A cool wave rushed from his throat to the top of his head. The spinning storm inside his mind slowed. The knots untied one by one. His collapse value started dropping from 95, point by point. When he finished eating, I clapped my hands, wrung out the net, and pushed my cart out of room 5. The security door closed behind me with a heavy click. The hallway was dead silent. Behind the glass walls of rooms 1 through 4, 4 of the Empire's greatest warriors stared at me with the exact same expression. They had just seen a ghost. The white tiger's massive paw pressed against the glass, amber eyes full of disbelief. The black panther was plastered flat against the window, his eyes saying, "Am I dreaming?" The falcon tilted his head, trying to understand how a tiny female had that much nerve. The vermilion bird's tail feathers had puffed out in shock, red plumes falling to the ground. My wolf followed silently behind me, face blank, step steady, but inside just as shaken as the 4 behind the glass. One of the Empire's 3 SS rank warriors, the deep-sea prince Song Ming, had just been scooped out of the water with a fishing net by a little female. Up in the top floor of the main building, Liu sat in the central monitoring room, a wall of screens showing every corner of all 5 observation cells. He had his morning coffee in hand and checked cell 5 first, like he always did. For 11 days that screen had shown the same thing, a still shape at the bottom of a dark pool, and life signs slowly dropping.
Then he saw
Me on the screen, standing at the pool's edge with a giant scoop net, hauling the Empire's SS rank merman out of the water like a sack of fish. He spat his coffee all over the control panel. He fumbled for tissues, wiped his glasses, and stared at the screen. I was pinching Songming's chin, pouring nutrient paste into his mouth, then stuffing green leaves in after it. And Songming, the same merman whose mental force field had blasted an S-rank soother across the room, was chewing. He swallowed it. Liu ripped off his glasses, wiped them on his sleeve, and shoved them back on. He checked the collapse value monitor next to the screen. That number had been nailed at 95 for 12 straight days. Now it was falling. 94, 93, 91, 89, still dropping. His pupils shrank with every jump. He pulled up the other 4 cells. Jingyao, down from 89 to 86. Hanzhou, 91 to 88. Lingshou, 88 to 85. Qi Heng, 93 to 90. 5 collapse curves, all dropping at the same time. His first thought was illegal drugs. The Empire's black market had a banned substance called the King of Sedatives that could force collapse values down fast, but the side effects were brutal. After it wore off, the rebound was worse than before, and the user showed clear symptoms: scattered pupils, abnormal temperature, confusion, wild mood swings. He zoomed into each cell's behavior feed. Jing Yao was lying at the glass wall, bright-eyed, tapping his paw on the floor the way he did when he was in a good mood. Hanzhou was pacing elegantly instead of hiding in shadows. Lingshou was circling in the air in smooth, steady patterns. Qi Heng sat quietly on his rock, his body temperature nearly 10 degrees cooler than usual, almost back to normal. And Songming was floating at the surface, his upper body draped over the edge, his fish tail lazily slapping the water like he was playing. Not one of them showed drug side effects. Every single one was clear-headed, calm, and more stable than they had been on official sedatives. Liu reached for his coffee to take a steadying sip. The cup was empty. He had sprayed it all on the keyboard. At 2:14 in the afternoon, his communicator rang. The caller made his hand freeze above the answer button. Jing Yao. In all the time the marshal had been locked up, no prisoner had ever called out. They came here to give up and wait for the end. Nobody felt like chatting with management. Marshal. How can I help you? Liu answered in his usual even tone. Jing Yao's voice was deep with the chest rumble of a tiger, but it was steady, clear, and strong, nothing like the strained, dangerous rasp of a man on the edge of madness. He skipped all small talk and went straight to the point. The green plant the female delivered this morning. What is it? Liu tapped his glasses twice. He glanced at the monitor. All 5 curves had dropped below 85. Jing Yao at 82, Hanzhou 84, Lingshou 81, Qi Heng 85, Songming 86. I am not sure, Liu answered honestly. It is not standard prison supplies. Warden Yi brought it herself. Marshal, do you feel any discomfort? 1 second of silence. Then Jing Yao's voice came back with a tone Liu had never heard from anyone, something close to reverence. None. That plant works better than Radiance Repair Solution and an S-rank healer combined. Liu set down the communicator and tapped the desk without thinking. Radiance Repair Solution was the Empire's finest mental repair drug. 1 dose cost as much as a small town's entire annual budget. There were only 3 S-rank healers in the whole Empire, and every major family fought over them like national treasures. And Jing Yao, the blunt, no-nonsense marshal, had just compared a bundle of unknown leaves to both of those things and said the leaves were better. Liu swapped his coffee-stained glasses for a backup pair from his drawer, opened my personnel file, and added a top-secret note. Then he opened the finance and personnel systems and started filling out 2 forms. By then I had finished my delivery rounds 2 hours ago and was back in the yard behind my little house. There was a big open space back there with an old tree spreading its branches like a giant umbrella, shading a wide patch of ground. The moment I saw that space, my farming instincts and my foodie instincts fired at the same time. A yard this big, with shade and grass, and I was not using it for barbecue? That would be a crime against nature. I pulled out my portable grill from the space, lit the charcoal, and started a proper barbecue in the yard behind my house. Fresh green onions and garlic from the Spirit Farm, sliced spam, vacuum-packed beef skewers, all sizzling on the grill with cumin, chili powder, and pepper salt. The smell drifted over the wall and filled the whole living area. The big wolf sat next to the grill, his blue-gray eyes glued to the meat, tail tip patting the grass, a small patch of fur at his mouth already wet with drool. "Relax, it is not ready yet," I laughed. "Anyone would think I starved you for 3 days." He dropped his chin on my knee, eyes still locked on the grill. Then something stirred in my mind. My space was changing. I told the wolf to watch the fire and slipped inside. My jaw nearly hit the floor. The 100-square-meter field had more than doubled. New Spirit soil stretched out in neat rows, already sprouting lettuce I had scattered earlier. A brand new pond had appeared beside the garden, clear as crystal, with Spirit water just like the well. The well itself had grown wider, the water higher, the spiritual energy thicker. But the biggest shock was my apartment. It was gone. In its place stood a full-sized modern supermarket. Shelves lined up perfectly, fridges humming, everything organized. Fresh meat and vegetables in the coolers, frozen seafood and instant meals in the freezers, warm roast chicken and roast goose in the hot display case. My old doomsday supplies were still there, sorted onto the right shelves, but mixed in with thousands of products I had never bought. The chip aisle, the chocolate shelf, the beef jerky row, the spicy snack sticks, all fully stocked. I checked the dates on some packages. They were printed after the day I crossed over. This supermarket was not just storing my old stuff. It was restocking and updating on its own. A new chip flavor I had bought at a convenience store last week was sitting right there on the shelf. "Transmigration always comes with cheap powers," I muttered, walking up and down the aisles in a daze. I grabbed a bag of frozen soup dumplings and some steamer trays, then glanced at the pond on my way out. The water was clear, with a few lotus leaves floating on top, and I thought I saw a silver flash underneath, but maybe I imagined it. A notification on my communicator pulled me back to reality. 2 messages from Lu Yu. The first was from the finance system. 100,000 star coins deposited into my account. Special bonus for successfully getting prisoner Song Ming to surface and eat. The second was from Human Resources. My monthly salary was raised from 30,000 to 50,000 star coins, effective immediately. Reason: outstanding performance. A note added that the green plant I delivered today was now officially listed as a daily supply item for all prisoners. I stared at those numbers for 5 full seconds. 100,000 bonus, plus 20,000 more per month, all because of a handful of catnip. "Boss is generous," I said from my heart. Lu Yu might look gentle and sly behind those glasses, but the man got things done fast. Raise, space upgrade, and a fortune in my account. My mood hit the ceiling. And when I am in a good mood, I cook. That was my habit in my old life. Stressed from overtime? Cook a meal. Got a bonus? Cook a meal. Rare weekend off? Definitely cook a meal. The kitchen was my fortress against the world. Food was my universal language. I pulled out bags of frozen soup dumplings and set up the steamer on the electric stove. The frozen dumplings slowly turned translucent in the steam, the thin skin shifting from white to pale gold, the meat filling swelling with broth inside each little pouch. The smell leaked through the steamer lid and mixed with the lingering barbecue smoke outside. The wolf's nose would not stop twitching. I picked up a dumpling, blew on it, and held it out to him. His tongue flicked, and it vanished.
Second one gone.
Third one gone. When I finished steaming and counted what was left, I went quiet. 5 trays, 8 dumplings each, 40 total. 30 of them had gone into the wolf. He licked his lips and gave me the look that said, "Is there more?" "Puppy, you really can eat." I crouched down and rubbed his big wolf face from ears to chin. He squinted and let out the tiniest purr from his throat, then snapped his eyes open and choked it back. He was a wolf. An adult, S-rank, officially described as cold and unsociable male wolf, not a dog. But he did not pull his face out of my hands. I was thinking, big dogs eat big. Without my 50,000 salary and 100,000 bonus, Feeding this one dog alone would bankrupt me. I split the last 10 dumplings into 5 portions of 2 each and packed them in clean thermal boxes. 2 dumplings was barely a crumb for beasts that stood 2 or 3 meters tall. But I had my reasons. What if they did not like real food? What if their stomachs were so used to paste that actual food upset them? I could not waste it. Even though my space supermarket restocked for free, wasting food was shameful in any world. I loaded the thermal boxes onto the meal cart with 5 nutrient tubes and 5 fresh bundles of catnip. Then I thought of something. I grabbed one of the leftover plain nutrient tubes and held it out to the wolf. "Puppy, wanna try?" He looked at the silver tube, then slowly, firmly, with open disgust, turned his whole head away. He even stepped back half a step. I laughed and put it away. "You really are a dog with taste. If even a dog refused that stuff, how had those 5 eaten it for years?" My sympathy for those 5 imperial warriors peaked right there. A marshal, a strategic commander, a Falcon clan heir, a Vermilion bird prince, and ocean royalty, any one of them could shake the empire with a stomp, and they ate worse than the convenience store stew I used to buy at midnight after overtime. I put on my dark blue warden uniform, straightened the badge on my shoulder, and pushed the cart toward the observation wing. The wolf followed behind me, his silver tail swaying lightly, his steps a little bouncier than usual after all those dumplings. I pushed the meal cart to the first observation cell and ran into a problem. The delivery slot was only about 20 centimeters wide, designed for skinny nutrient tubes. My thermal box with 2 plump soup dumplings inside was too tall to fit. I tried tilting it, flipping it, turning it sideways. Nothing worked. I stared at that little square hole for 3 seconds, then gave up. I grabbed the door handle, swiped my access card, and the heavy security door clicked open. Inside, the white tiger opened his eyes and stood up from the stone platform. His massive body unfolded, muscles rolling under snow-white fur, gray stripes stretching from his spine to his belly. Every step he took felt like a mountain moving. He walked to the center of the room and looked down at me with his amber eyes. Standing up, his shoulders were almost level with my chest. The instant the door opened, the wolf shot in front of me like lightning. His legs spread, his center dropped low. Every hair on his neck stood up, and a deep warning growl rumbled from his throat. He knew the tiger was Marshal Jingyao, his own commanding officer, someone he could never beat in a fair fight. But if the marshal lost control and hurt me, he would bite, no matter who it was. Jingyao shifted his gaze to the wolf. Of course he recognized Yulai, his own missing general, now in beast form, playing guard dog for a little female and baring teeth at him. Interesting. But he said nothing and looked back at me. From where I stood, all I saw was a giant white cat tilting his head, staring at me with round, curious amber eyes. Those eyes were clear and bright, his pupils slightly oval in the light, framed by perfect white stripes. To me, it was not the fearsome gaze of an imperial marshal. It was a big kitty being adorable. Big kitty, no wait, marshal. I corrected myself fast, but I was not scared at all. I walked straight in with the thermal box and set it on the stone platform. Time to eat. Jingyao paused for 1 second. Big kitty. He was 37 years old. He had climbed from junior officer to marshal on a mountain of battlefield achievements. Everyone called him Marshal, Commander, Lord White Tiger. The last person to call him Big Kitty, no, nobody ever had. But his noble upbringing kept him calm. He just twitched his whiskers and looked down at the box. 2 small white dumplings sat inside, their skins so thin they were almost see-through, each fold pinched perfectly, a light sheen of oil and steam on the surface. A bundle of green catnip lay beside them. The S-rank nutrient tube had been shoved to the edge of the tray like an afterthought. He dipped his tongue in and scooped up the first dumpling. He chewed once, paused, then chewed again. From where I stood, I watched his ears flick twice, his tail tip curl upward, and his amber eyes relax and go soft with pleasure. By the second dumpling, he was not holding back. Tongue flick, crunch, gone. Watching a giant white tiger eat dumplings with his ears trembling in happiness made my heart skip several beats. Cuter than every pet video I had ever watched on Earth combined. My brain was screaming, "This is an Imperial Marshal, get a grip." But my hand was already moving on its own. My fingers landed on the soft, thick fur on top of his head, and I stroked from the spot between his eyes, all the way back behind his ears. His chewing stopped. He froze with half a dumpling in his mouth, amber eyes rolling upward to stare at me, the small female with her hand on his head. The last time anyone touched his head was when he was a nursing cub and his mother licked his fur. In the entire Imperial army, nobody dared touch the marshal's head. Even his aide kept half an arm's distance when handing over documents. And now a little female was rubbing his forehead in his own cell while he was fully conscious with no sedatives. His brain shut down. I kept petting for a good while from his head to his ear roots down to the thick mane on the back of his neck, mumbling so soft, even softer than I imagined. This fur volume is insane. Then my fingers brushed the tip of his ear, and it twitched, and suddenly I realized what I had just done. I had petted an Imperial Marshal's tiger head while he was awake.
No sedatives.
Great texture. I am sorry, my mistake. My hand snapped back like I had touched a hot stove. I stumbled 3 steps backward and almost crashed into the wolf. My face switched from bliss to panic in half a second. I backed toward the door, babbling nonsense. The dumplings are best hot, the catnip helps digestion, the nutrient tube is optional. I need to go deliver to number 2 now. I was already outside the security door before I finished talking. I slammed it shut, leaned against the hallway wall, and pressed both hands over my burning ears. My skin was red from my neck to my forehead. The wolf stood beside me with a look that said, "I knew you were bold, but I did not know you were this bold." After yesterday's fishing net stunt with Song Ming, he had already upgraded his estimate of my courage. But today, I broke through the ceiling again. Jing Yao, the marshal who became famous at 17 on a frozen battlefield, who had personally killed enough enemy commanders to fill a reinforced company. I had petted this killing god's head and complimented the texture. The wolf glanced through the glass wall. Jing Yao was still standing in the same spot, a very strange expression on his tiger face, somewhere between blank and thoughtful. He was not angry, he had not released any mental pressure, he had not even stepped back. He just stood there quietly, still chewing the last half of that dumpling, his tail swaying slowly left and right. In 13 years of knowing the marshal, the wolf had never once seen that expression. It was not the look of someone offended. It was more like someone who simply had not figured out what just happened.
But there was no time to think about it.
I was already pushing my cart to cell number 2. Cell 2 was darker than the others. A black shape curled in the far corner, almost invisible in the shadows. The Black Panther's fur was so dark it only showed a faint blue shimmer when he breathed. Hanzhou did not come to greet me like Jing Yao had. He stayed in his corner, only his pale gold eyes glowing in the dark like 2 cold flames. The pressure in this room felt completely different from Cell 1. Jing Yao's pressure was a mountain bearing down on you. Hanzhou's was a net, silent and thin, wrapping around you until the air felt scarce. My chest felt tight the second I opened the door, but I figured it was just nerves from petting the marshal a few minutes ago. I walked in with a tray and set it on the stone platform. "Hello, I am the new warden. Here is your lunch. Dumplings, catnip, and nutrient tube, all lined up neatly." I did not leave right away. I stood there looking at him with hopeful eyes. Hanzhou stared back in silence. He had watched me through the glass this morning. He had seen me pet Jing Yao's head and say the texture was nice. Now I was standing in his room with that same look. He was not going to let me touch him. He rose from the corner like a shadow gaining a body, walked to the platform with that smooth cat stride, picked up a dumpling, the catnip bundle, and the nutrient tube, then retreated to his corner, without a sound. The whole thing was graceful and efficient. He kept at least 3 meters between us the entire time. No eye contact.
No pause.
A clear, polite keep your distance. Only after he was back in his corner did he start eating. On the first bite his panther ears pressed back. On the second bite the tip of his tail curled. But his face, if a black panther could have an expression, stayed cold as ice. I watched him eating alone in his dark corner, put my hands on my hips and grumbled, "A Fluffy who will not let me pet him is not a good boy." Up, in the monitoring room, Lu Yu was on his third coffee, watching this on the screen. He paused mid-sip, and behind his gold-rimmed glasses his honey-colored eyes showed a look that said, "What kind of person did I hire?" The wolf behind me had fully surrendered by now. Not because of strategy or logic, but pure instinct. This female truly treated the Imperial Marshal like a house cat and scolded the chief commander for not being cuddly enough. In her eyes, the Empire's most terrifying warriors were all just big fluffy animals that needed feeding, petting, and coaxing. Marshal, commander, clan heir, they were all pets in her book. The wolf suddenly felt very lucky. At least she treated him as a dog. Dogs clearly ranked higher than cats. He sped up and nudged his head against my hanging hand. "My good puppy is still the sweetest." I gave him a rub and moved on. Cell 3 had an open dome ceiling with a fake sky. A silver-gray falcon circled high above. Ling Shou had been watching me the whole time and had seen me get rejected in Cell 2. He was not going to give me any chance. When I walked in with the tray, he snatched a dumpling from the platform, beat his wings, and flew to the highest perch. He looked down at me with the sharp, proud eyes of a raptor, every angle of his body saying, "Do not even think about it." I craned my neck until it ached. I tried standing on my toes. He immediately flew one perch higher, keeping exactly 2 meters above me at all times. Stingy. I rubbed my sore neck and turned to leave. Flat feathers are never as lovable as round fur. Behind me, the wolf's tail almost shot straight up. He was deeply grateful to be round-furred. Canine, round fur, obedient, pettable, 5 stars. Cell 4 was hot as always. I could feel the heat through the door before I even opened it. Inside, Chi-hung the vermilion bird stood on his black stone mountain, crimson wings half spread, the air around him shimmering with heat. Even with his collapse value lowered, a vermilion bird's body temperature was still far above normal. The whole room was like a giant oven. I set the tray down and wiped the sweat that instantly beaded on my forehead. Then I had an idea. I reached into my space and pulled out 2 popsicles, a green bean bar, and a plain milk bar, both the simplest, cheapest kind, wisps of cold mist curling off them. "Here, have some ice. Cool yourself down." I set them beside the food tray on a box lid so they would not melt onto the floor. Chi-hung tilted his head and stared at the frosty little sticks for a while, then carefully pecked one and bit down. The icy sweetness and the clean taste of green beans spread through his mouth, soothing the fire inside him. His feathers fluffed up slightly. He hopped down the mountain and went for the second one. "Good, right? Next time I will bring chocolate and strawberry flavor." I nodded with satisfaction and headed out. Cell 5. Song Ming. The moment the door opened, cool damp air and the salty smell of the sea washed over me. The water was clearer than yesterday. I could see sand and water plants on the bottom. Song Ming was floating at the surface, his back to the door, arms folded on the stone ledge, his fish tail swaying slowly in the water. The scales shifted from deep blue to silver white, catching the light like gems. His long seaweed-like hair clung wet to his back, the ends drifting in the water. Just his back view was a painting. "I brought your meal," I said, setting the thermal box, catnip, and nutrient tube on the ledge. "Today there are soup dumplings. Way better than nutrient paste.
Try them." He did not turn around.
His profile behind the curtain of hair was cold and distant. Yesterday's memory was still fresh in his mind. A small female had scooped him out of the water with a fishing net like an actual fish. In 300 years of life, he had never been so humiliated. And worse, the other 4 had been mocking him nonstop since yesterday afternoon. Jing Yao thumped his tail against the shared glass wall every time he saw him. Han Zhou's stare was insufferable even without words. Chi-hung made seagull noises through the wall. He swore he would pluck that bird bald someday. But he could not be angry at me, because I had saved him. His collapse value had dropped from 95 to 86 in a single day, more than the total decline of the past 3 months combined. Whatever I had done, I had genuinely pulled him back from the edge. The Sea Royals lived by a code: repay kindness, never rage at a savior. He had looked at my file. Yi Tang, 18 years old. By his people's count, where adulthood started at 300, 18 was not even out of infancy. Back home, the elders would have wrapped a child that young in their tales to sleep. And this baby had walked into his pool, risked being shredded by an SS-rank force field, and hauled him up with the clumsiest, most direct method she could think of, just so he could breathe. Thinking about it made it even harder to turn around. If he saw my face, he would remember the net, and the shame and the gratitude would crash into each other in his chest, and he would not know what expression to wear. So he kept his back to me, made his voice as cold and distant and businesslike as he could, and said, "Leave it. You can go." I went back to my quarters, threw my uniform jacket on the sofa, and sank into the armchair. I spent half an hour figuring out the online shopping system on the old communicator the original owner left behind. It worked pretty much like shopping apps back on Earth, just different products. I went straight to the basics. Besides my warden uniform, all I had were the original owner's faded, worn-out clothes. I loaded the cart with outfits, shoes, pajamas, underwear, and socks. Then I spotted a huge 2-meter-20 bed in the furniture section and threw it in two. The single bed was fine for sleeping, but rolling around on a big bed was living. When evening came and it was time for the next meal delivery, I steamed frozen dumplings and shumai from my space, then mixed up little dipping sauce dishes with soy sauce, black vinegar, minced garlic, and a few drops of chili oil. 5 little sauce boxes, one for each tray. I divided the food into 6 portions. The wolf got the biggest plate, piled high. Since the prisoners were stuck eating nutrient paste anyway, I scraped a little extra onto his plate too. Each prisoner got 2 dumplings and 2 shumai with a sauce dish. "Let's go, big puppy." Dinner delivery. I pushed the cart out. The wolf trotted beside me, wearing the new black leather collar I had bought him, silver buckles shining under the hallway lights. He walked with a bounce in his step, zero shame about the collar. When I opened cell 1, Jing Yao had shifted to human form. He sat on the standard-issue sofa, which looked like a child's chair under his huge frame. White military uniform, legs casually crossed, messy short white hair, and a pair of round white tiger ears poking up from his head. His amber eyes were even deeper in human form, his features sharp and powerful, brow bones high, jawline like a blade. I nearly dropped the food tray. My brain set off fireworks the instant I saw him. White hair, tiger ears, amber eyes, and a body better than any celebrity I had ever followed in my old life. "Good evening, Warden," he said in a deep rumbling voice. "Good evening, Big Marshal." I caught myself at the last second and swallowed the word, "kitty," back down. The wolf sat behind me, a glint of amusement in his blue-gray eyes, his tail giving a small wag. Jing Yao's gaze shifted to the wolf.
He saw everything.
His own missing general, the deputy commander of the Northern Defense Line, gone for 4 days, now wearing a genuine leather collar and sitting behind a small female like a pet. He picked up a dumpling, dipped it lightly in sauce, and ate it. Then in a casual, almost offhand tone he asked, "Warden Yi, this one beside you, do you know what breed it is?" The wolf's ears shot straight up. Every hair on his neck exploded outward. His tail went stiff in midair, and his blue-gray eyes snapped to Jing Yao. Through their mental link he was screaming, "Marshal, please, I am begging you." I did not notice any of that. I patted the wolf's head. "Colonel Liu said he is a husky." Jing Yao's chopstick paused. He glanced at the wolf, whose entire face was twitching with panic. Jing Yao decided to show mercy and picked up the second dumpling. "Good specimen." I did not catch the silent exchange between them. Seeing that Jing Yao seemed to enjoy the food, I cleaned up the cart and headed for the next room, mumbling under my breath, "I wonder if the panther will let me pet him." My voice was soft, but both Jing Yao and the wolf had S-rank hearing. They exchanged a look through the glass that said the same thing. This little female's nerve is beyond measure.
Cell 2.
The Black Panther was in his usual dark corner, only his pale gold eyes showing. This time I was smarter. I set the food on the platform and pretended to turn and leave. Han Zhou slipped out of the shadows with his elegant catwalk, leaned down to grab the tray, and turned. The instant his tail swung around, my hand shot out like lightning and my fingertips brushed the very tip of it. His tail was completely different from the wolf's. Short, dense fur, smooth and springy, like touching fine silk. Not as nice as my dog's tail, I said with a hint of disappointment as I pulled my hand back. Han Zhou retreated to his corner with the tray, his gold panther eyes unreadable. But if he had been in human form, his face would have been several shades darker. Cell 3. Ling Shou was not circling in the air today. He stood on the ground in falcon form, silver-gray wings folded at his sides, his hawk eyes carrying a playful spark. His collapse value had dropped to 82, the lowest it had been in 3 years. 2 days of my cooking and catnip had pulled his mind out of a thorn bush. He was in a good mood, and when he was in a good mood, he liked to talk. He took 2 steps toward me and looked down from his towering height. "Little female, you are so tiny." Like a bean sprout, I paused with the tray in my hands, looked down at myself, just over 160 and skinny as a stick, and sure, standing next to a falcon almost 190, I did not look like much. But that did not mean I had to accept being called a bean sprout. If I jumped, I could be 180. "You are big, your whole family is big." I slammed the tray down, my mouth faster than my brain. "Your wings roasted would only be enough for 1 meal for my dog." He was not angry. He actually spread both wings wide. Fully open, they almost spanned the entire room, every flight feather razor-sharp and perfect. "Are you sure?" he said, his hawk eyes laughing, beak tip almost touching my face, "that your so-called dog could finish them in 1 meal?" Behind me, the wolf studied those wings seriously, then thought it over honestly. 1 meal, no.
2 meals, yes.
I did not answer because my eyes were already glued to those wings. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. I reached up and touched the soft covert feathers at the base of his wing, the hidden patch under the flight feathers that almost never gets touched. They were silky, warm, and impossibly fluffy. His wing flinched and pulled back half an inch, but he did not fold it away completely. "Little bean sprout, you are this weak. No male beast would want you, right?" I rolled my eyes and fired back, without mercy. "You are this strong and you are still locked up in here. No female wants you either. I just have not looked, I just have not grown up yet." His hawk eyes blinked. "Imperial law said females could sign marriage contracts at 18.
He pointed this out.
"I am only 18, I said with my hands on my hips and total confidence. "I am building my career, making money. There is a saying where I come from. If you can count on a man, pigs can climb trees." He tilted his falcon head. He did not understand what building a career meant, and the connection between unreliable men and tree-climbing pigs completely escaped him. I checked the time and realized I had wasted too long arguing with that bird. Flat feathers really are not lovable. I tossed back at him on my way out. Cell 4 was cooler than before. Chi Hung had shifted to human form. He stood on the open ground below the stone mountain, his crimson wings half spread behind him, dark red light flowing through every feather vein like cooled lava reignited. In human form, he looked somewhere between a teenager and a young man, features bold and bright, eyes tilted slightly upward, a shameless grin on his face. Everything about him radiated the Vermilion Bird clan's pride and warmth. His collapse value had dropped from 93 to 82. 11 points. Even someone as naturally cheerful as Chi Hung had spent the entire afternoon staring at his monitoring bracelet for 10 minutes after lunch, checking again and again that the device was not broken. Now he saw me walk in, and his smile grew even wider. "Warden, do you have any beast husbands?" I had just finished bickering with the bird in Cell 3, and now another one was asking about beast husbands. Was today's conversation topic assigned some kind of quota? I handed him the meal box, exhausted. "I am only 18. Not an adult yet. Do not need beast husbands." He took the box but did not eat right away. His wings fanned once, sending a warm breeze my way. He stepped closer, folded his wings, and let me see his human face clearly. The Vermilion Bird clan was famous for beauty among all beast men, and Chi Hung was the best of his clan. Refined features with a sharp edge, bright burning eyes, and when he smiled, he looked like a walking sun. He said very seriously, as if presenting something extremely important, "You are young, true, but you can already take beast husbands. How about it? Would you consider me?" Behind me, the wolf let out a tightly controlled growl squeezed between his teeth. He stepped forward, his silver body blocking the space between me and Chi Hung, blue-gray eyes locked on the bird, mental pressure aimed squarely at him. One silent message, delivered like a declaration. Chi Hung. She is the female I chose. Chi Hung raised an eyebrow but did not back down. His mental reply was just as blunt, carrying the inborn pride of the Vermilion Bird clan. Imperial law says a female must have at least 3 beast husbands. You cannot have her all to yourself. The wolf's jaw clenched for an instant. He could not argue. The law really did require at least 3 beast husbands per female, based on the rarity of females and the need to stabilize male mental power. His own mother had 4 beast husbands and was already considered loyal by beastman standards. He could not legally claim me alone, but at the very least, he could make sure he got the biggest share of my time. He kept that thought to himself while blocking me with his body, so I would not notice the silent war behind me. I had no idea 2 S-rank beasts were clashing right over my head. I was busy seriously considering Chi Heng's proposal, and I asked the most practical, most important question I could think of. Do you have money? Chi Heng's face went blank. He blinked. He, the young lord of the Vermilion Bird clan, born with a golden spoon, gifted an entire volcanic mineral vein by his father at his coming-of-age ceremony, withholding spanning, energy and military industries, had never once in his life been asked if he had money. The question was so basic, so plain, that he had no idea how to answer it. I looked at his stunned face and used my years of office worker experience to reach a conclusion. This guy was broke. The logic was simple. Rich people asked if they have money, just say yes. Only poor people freeze up when you bring up finances. I brushed imaginary dust off my uniform, turned around, and pushed the cart away. Not interested. Obviously broke. Chi Hung stood there holding his meal box, wings half open, mouth hanging slightly ajar, watching me walk out the security door. This was the first time in his life a female had decided he was poor. Should he ask his clan to fax over his asset statement?
Cell 5.
The pool water sparkled under the lights. When I pushed the door open, I finally saw Tsong Ming's face. The merman was floating at the surface, upper body draped over the stone ledge, arms crossed, chin resting on his forearms, fish tails swaying silently in the water. Golden hair, soaking wet, spilled over his shoulders and back, the ends drifting in the water like melted sunlight. His features came together in an almost unreal balance. Highbrow bones without being harsh, a straight nose, lips with soft, clear lines. But what held me was his eyes. Ocean blue, and not just any blue. It was the darkness of the deep sea and the shimmer of the surface existing in the same pair of eyes at once. And on that nearly perfect face, the faint exhaustion from days of fighting his own mind showed beneath his lashes, a trace of fragility that somehow made him even more beautiful. I stood at the edge of the pool, looking down at him, and went a little blank. I was not the type to lose my head over looks. In my old life, I only ever chased fictional characters. No real male celebrity had ever made my heart skip. But this merman forced me to admit it. I was weak for beauty, not romantic attraction. Just pure awe at something this perfectly made. Warden Yi. He lifted his head slightly, sea blue eyes meeting mine, his voice cool with a lazy edge. Am I good-looking? Yes, I said without thinking. Dangerously beautiful, he smiled. When he smiled, his eyes curved and all that cold distance melted into something softer and warmer. But the next second the smile vanished, and he put on a stern face, his tone like someone settling an old score. Then why did you scoop me with a fishing net? I choked. Of course, he was still holding a grudge. I organized my thoughts at top speed and decided to go with honesty. I spread my hands. You would not come out of the water. What was I supposed to do? The boss said you had been under for 11 days, and your lungs were going to fail. I stood at the door yelling at you, and you completely ignored me. Should I have jumped in after you? I cannot even swim. He went quiet for a moment. He could not argue back. He had heard me yelling through the intercom. He just had not wanted to deal with anyone. And this female, whose mental power barely existed, had chosen a method so absurd he still could not believe it, yet he could not bring himself to say a single harsh word about it. While he was silent, my nerves swelled again. My eyes drifted from his face down into the water. That huge fishtail was swaying slowly beneath the surface, scales shifting from deep blue to silver white, each one smooth and perfect with a slightly transparent edge, glittering like jewels in the rippling light. Back on Earth, the aquarium charged hundreds for tickets just to see a fake mermaid tail. This one was real.
Alive.
Moving. My voice dropped very low. Guilty as a thief. Can I touch your tail? His smile froze solid. His brain cross-checked the meaning of that sentence from 3 different angles at the same time. In the courtship customs of the Sea Abyss royal family, touching a merman's tail was the equivalent of a marriage proposal. Not a date. Not flirting. A proposal. Only partners who had already signed a marriage contract were allowed to touch each other's tails. He had lived 300 years, and even in the entire long history of the sea folk, no female had ever asked to touch a tail on the first meeting. Did she know? No, she definitely did not know. If she knew, she would not have asked. But even so, even not knowing, his tail whipped hard. A huge splash erupted from the pool and drenched me and the wolf behind me from head to toe. Fine. Just say no. I wiped the water off my face, hair plastered to my forehead, uniform soaked through. I pushed the dripping cart toward the door, muttering stubbornly, stingy. Songming turned away and sank into the water, leaving only half his head and his eyes above the surface. His golden hair drifted across the water like seaweed, hiding most of his face. But the thin, translucent fin-like membranes on the sides of his ears, normally a pale blue-green, had flushed to a soft pink. Up in the central monitoring room, Liu sat staring at 5 data curves on the holographic screen, his 4th coffee of the day gone cold in his hand. Jing Yao, 89 down to 78. Han Zhou, 91 down to 79. Ling Shou, 88 down to 76. Qi Heng, 93 down to 80. Song Ming, 95 down to 82. He searched the Imperial Research Institute's entire historical database. In over 2,000 years of Empire records, how many cases existed of collapse values above 90 being successfully repaired and brought down? The answer appeared on screen.
0.
Not one, ever. Collapse values above 90 were called the irreversible threshold in medical science. Once past that line, the breakdown accelerated on its own, like a boulder rolling downhill, gaining speed, unstoppable by any known force. The Empire's most expensive repair drugs could not do it. S-rank healers could not do it. Even the legendary ancient soothing formations could not do it. The textbooks said the only ending for a beast man past 90 was forced reclamation, the polite word for execution. And now, 5 curves had all dropped below 80. In 48 hours. Done by a small female with roast meat, soup dumplings, and a handful of unknown green leaves. Liu opened an encrypted channel. On screen appeared an elderly woman with sharp amber eyes and silver hair pulled back neatly. And Ning, director of the Imperial Research Institute, the Empire's only S+ rank female beastman, 147 years old, nearly a century of expertise in mental power research, and Liu Yu's own teacher. Teacher, Liu Yu said without small talk, I am sending you data. You need to see it personally. He sent the 5 curves along with a detailed report covering everything I had done in 2 days. How I delivered meals, what extra food I brought, how I scooped Song Ming with a fishing net, how I petted Jing Yao's head, how I grumbled when Han Zhou refused to let me touch him, even how I gave Qi Heng 2 popsicles. Every detail. And Ning was silent for a long time. She leaned back slowly, and for the first time in her life, her calm, weathered eyes showed genuine shock. She mentally reviewed every paper she had ever written, every experiment she had ever run, every theoretical model she had ever built. None of them could explain this data. Everything I have learned in my life, her voice was hoarse and slow, every word landing like a hammer, has just been overturned by this girl. She paused, then her fingers flew across her communicator, and her tone turned deadly serious. Liu Yu, from this moment, all of Yi Tang's personal information, employment records, surveillance footage, and any data related to her is classified at the Empire's highest level, SSS grade. Access authorized for you, and me only. Lu Yu straightened in his chair. SSS classification. Fewer than 10 documents in the entire empire held that level. Every single one involved secrets that could determine the fate of the nation. Raising a small female's file to that grade meant that in Ning's eyes, my value was no less than any strategic weapon the empire possessed. Also, she continued without giving him time to think, I have already requested a dedicated guard unit from the military. 12 members, all A rank or above, 24-hour protection. Authorization papers will reach you in 10 minutes. Lu Yu, her voice softened for just a moment, showing a gravity he had rarely seen on his teacher's face. This girl's safety is now the Empire's highest priority. Anyone, including the residents, who poses a threat to her, the guards are authorized to eliminate on the spot. Lu Yu paused for 1 second. He thought of me crouching under a tree petting my dog, eating barbecue with oil all over my face. Understood. And Ning nodded and was about to hang up when she added one more thing. One more task. Unlimited budget. Use every resource you can. I need a live specimen of that green plant delivered to the Institute, roots and soil included. I will study it personally. Yes, teacher. Lu Yu closed the communicator, leaned back, and rubbed the spot between his brows. Then he stood, opened a safe in his office, and took out a black crystal card. It was a strategic resource procurement card from the Imperial Research Institute, no spending limit, only 3 in existence across the entire empire. He tucked it into his uniform pocket and walked downstairs, faster than usual. When he reached the living quarters, he could smell the rich scent of roast meat from far away. He came around the corner of my yard and found me leaning against the old tree, legs crossed on the grass, gnawing a freshly grilled chicken wing in one hand while brushing sauce onto the grill. With the other, humming a song so off-key it had lost all hope of finding the melody. The wolf lay beside me, chin on his paws, blue-gray eyes half-closed, oil stains on his muzzle fur, clearly stuffed. The scene was so peaceful that Lu Yu stood in the shade for several seconds, almost not wanting to break it. But he walked over. Warden Yi. I looked up with a chicken bone still hanging from my lips. I spat it out and wiped my mouth with the back of my hand.
Colonel. Seat.
I just grilled a fresh batch of wings. Want some? Thank you, but no. He sat down on the grass beside me, crossing his legs gracefully. His antlers caught the filtered light and glowed warm ivory. I came to discuss a deal. That green plant of yours, the one you call catnip, I want to buy one. A live one, whole plant, roots and soil attached. The second I heard the word, deal, my eyes lit up. I tossed my chicken wing aside, jumped to my feet, and dusted off my pants like a weekend market vendor who just spotted a customer. Sell it? Of course I will sell it. I held up 5 fingers. In my head, I was thinking 50-star coins. Catnip was basically a weed in my spirit farm, 0 cost, grew back in half an hour after I picked it. On Earth, a potted catnip plant cost about 10 yuan. 50-star coins was already me rounding up. I did not want the Imperial military thinking I was pawning cheap junk off on their heroes. 50 was fair, respectable, good for both sides. My mental abacus was clicking away when Lu Yu looked at my 5 fingers, ran his own calculation, pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses, and said in the calmest voice possible, 500,000? Deal. My smile froze on my face. 500,000? Before I could even add the word, coins, Lu Yu had already whipped out his communicator at lightning speed, projected a transfer screen into the air in front of me, typed in the amount with flying fingers, and flashed through iris verification. A soft ding. 500,000 star coins, deposited. I looked down at the account balance notification on my communicator. My mouth opened, closed, opened again. My expression went through an entire journey from shock to confusion to, did I hear that wrong, to, I need to stay calm right now. My original price was 50-star coins. The cost of catnip for me was basically 0. It grew like a weed in my spirit farm, ready to harvest every half hour. On Earth, a potted catnip plant cost maybe 10 yuan. 50-star coins was already generous. But this dear colonel had just paid me 500,000 without blinking. It took me less than a second to adjust. I was a grown adult who had been beaten down by reality for years in the 21st century. Only a fool turns down free money. Besides, Louis was spending the Empire's budget, not his own pocket. Deal, Colonel. You are a man of action, I said with a perfectly straight face. Wait here, I will go get it. I walked into the house, closed the door, entered my space, and the calm mask shattered instantly. I jumped in the air, spun 3 times, threw a silent combo of punches at the sky, and opened my mouth in a huge silent scream. 500,000. I had thought going from 30,000 to 50,000 monthly was incredible luck. Now I sold 1 pot of grass and got 500,000. My spirit farm was full of catnip. At this price, I was the richest person in the beast world. After several deep breaths, I forced my grin down and started digging. I did not just yank any random plant. I picked the strongest, healthiest one, carefully dug it out with a small shovel, kept a fat ball of soil around the roots, put it in a white plastic pot, packed the dirt tight, and sprayed the leaves with well water. It looked fresh and perfect. The white pot was actually a strawberry container from a supermarket in my old life, which looked a little cheap, but I had nothing better in the space. I carried it outside and handed it to Lu Yu with both hands.
Here.
Whole plant, roots and soil. Just water it and it will live. Lu Yu stared at the plastic pot. His eyes moved between the plant and me twice. A 500,000 star coin deal, and she could not even give him a proper flower pot? This white, flimsy, wavy edge thing? But my expression was so natural and shameless that he asked nothing. He took the pot like he was receiving a live bomb, both hands perfectly steady, terrified of losing a single leaf. Pleasure doing business, he said, then turned and practically speed-walked away. His flax-colored hair blew back, revealing the fine fuzz at the base of his antlers. His military coat flapped behind him, an imperial colonel, power-walking through Prison Zero's hallway, clutching a strawberry container to his chest. The wolf had watched the entire deal from under the tree. His blue-gray eyes were half-closed, his tail sweeping the ground once, slow and heavy. Inside, he was furious at that sly deer. 500,000 for a plant that could pull an SS-rank beastman back from the irreversible threshold? The Empire's Radiance Repair Solution cost as much as a whole town's annual budget per dose and could only temporarily hold the numbers steady. My catnip had done more in 2 days than that drug and S-rank healers combined. On the black market, 500,000 would not buy a single leaf. Lu Yu paying that price for a whole plant with roots and soil was practically robbery. The wolf watched Lu Yu's back disappear down the hallway and let out a low, suppressed growl. He would get that antlered thief back someday. His little female was young and had never seen the world. He was keeping score. I sat on the old tree root with my legs crossed, my communicator screen floating in front of me, and counted the digits in my account balance 5 times. Each time my grin stretched a little wider. 500,000 star coins. In my old life, I coded for 7 miserable years, from intern to senior engineer, overtime until my hair thinned, and barely saved enough for a tiny suburban apartment. On my 3rd day in the beast world, I sold 1 pot of grass and pocketed 500,000. I closed the screen, cupped my face in both hands, and giggled at the treetop like an idiot. The wolf watched me, his tail sweeping the grass a little faster. Little money lover. Got ripped off and still thought she made a fortune, counting coins until her eyes turned into star coin shapes. Over these few days, he had eaten everything I made. Roast meat, soup dumplings, grilled chicken wings, catnip, silver vine, and the half-ear of roasted corn I had secretly slipped him this morning. He had entered the military at 12 and spent his whole life on nutrient paste, army rations, and unseasoned roast meat. He never knew eating could feel like this. And then there was his collapse value. 3 months ago, it was 82. When he met me a few days back, it had climbed to 84. Right now, it's sat at 68. 16 points down. In 6 years at the northern border, the Army's air-rank soother visited twice a year, exhausted herself each time, and the best she ever managed was 5 points. In one session. All I did was feed him a few meals, pet his fur a few times, and stuff handfuls of fresh catnip into his mouth, and he dropped to 68. By imperial military standards, any beast man below 70 was in combat-ready condition. He could pack up right now, go back to the northern defense line, and resume being the Third Army's general and deputy commander. He glanced north. Up there, his older brother Yuming was covering for him. Yuming, the Third Army's chief commander, his full-blooded sibling, devious as they come. When the wolf was 12 and had just learned to shift into beast form, his brother tricked him by saying they were going rabbit hunting. He was so excited he could not sleep. At dawn they ran into the forest together. When they arrived, Yuming shoved him into a clearing, jumped onto a boulder, pointed at a low-rank beast that had somehow appeared on the other side, and said with a smile the words burned into the wolf's memory for 13 years. "You are already here. Might as well fight before you leave." 12 years old, first time in beast form, teeth not even fully grown, used as bait by his own brother. But that did not mean Yuming did not care. Everyone in the wolf clan knew he was fiercely protective. Nobody else was allowed to bully his little brother. But he bullied freely himself, calling it the best training is real combat. He told the family, "I will watch him, he will not die." Then through 12-year-old. "You lie into the most forward assault squad." The wolf pulled his gaze back from the northern sky and looked at me again, still grinning at my account balance. The North had his brother holding it down. His deputy had served him faithfully for 7 years. And his father, the previous clan leader, was still strong enough to rip apart an armored vehicle with his bare hands if it came to that. But this little female? She only had him, thrown out by her family, penniless. So weak she panted after a few steps. Double F mental power that could not even protect herself. And somehow placed in charge of a prison holding 5 of the Empire's deadliest fighters. She thought she had won the lottery, happily raising cats, walking dogs, farming vegetables and grilling skewers, completely unaware she was dancing on the edge of danger every single day. She only had him. He rested his chin on his paws and swept his tail once across the grass. Decision made. The North could manage without him. This place could not manage without him. I closed my communicator, jumped up in high spirits, walked over to the wolf, crouched down, and grabbed his big furry face with both hands for a thorough squishing. His cheeks got pushed together, his blue-gray eyes squeezed into slits, his pointy ears stuck straight up, the whole look caught between helpless and cooperative. "Puppy, we are rich," I squeezed and babbled excitedly. "Tomorrow, I am roasting you a whole lamb leg."
No, 2.
"One for you, one for me. No more saving food." You have no idea. The night I arrived, I did not have a single coin. I drank water from a well. Now we are wealthy. You are a rich person's dog. Happy or not. From between his squished wolf lips came a muffled woo, and his tail thumped the ground 3 times. To me it sounded like happy whining. In his head it was something else entirely. "Silly female, I am not a dog. And also, your money is what you earned yourself, not what Liu gave you. What he gave you is not nearly enough." On my 3rd morning of meal deliveries, I was in the best mood. Last night, I counted my account balance in the space multiple times, and this morning I counted again, just to make sure those zeros were real. Then I got up early, full of energy. I harvested a fresh batch of catnip from the Spirit Farm and grabbed sliced bread and lettuce from the supermarket shelves. Today's menu: catnip, sandwiches, and the standard nutrient tubes. The sandwiches were simple to make. Sliced bread, lettuce, tomato, pan-fried spam turned golden brown, and a runny fried egg, cut diagonally into neat triangles. They looked great and fit nicely in one hand. I kept the portions small on purpose. 1 sandwich each, 1 catnip bundle, 1 nutrient tube. For beasts standing 2 or 3 meters tall, this was barely a snack. I figured nutrient paste was their lifelong staple food, like rice or noodles were for me. My cooking might be a fun novelty, but I could not expect them to drop their main diet overnight. If I made a huge batch and nobody liked it, that would be wasted effort and wasted food. I was completely wrong. In cell 1, Jingyao looked at the triangle sandwich, the familiar green catnip, and the dark brown meat-flavored nutrient tube. He hesitated, then rolled the sandwich into his mouth. He chewed, paused, and his ears twitched twice. Then he glanced at the nutrient tube, looked back at the empty spot where the sandwich had been, and ate the catnip. The nutrient tube sat there untouched. In cell 2, Hanjo stared at the tray for a long time. His pale green panther eyes moved from sandwich to nutrient tube and back again. Then he picked up the sandwich and catnip and retreated to his corner. The nutrient tube stayed on the stone platform, packaging still sealed. In cell 3, Ling showed up from his perch, snatched the sandwich and catnip with perfect aim, and flew back up to eat in style. When he finished, his hawk eyes swept over the lonely nutrient tube on the ledge. He flapped his wings and turned his back on it. In cell 4, Chi-hung was curious. He poked the bread with his beak, tilted his head when the runny egg oozed out, then his eyes brightened, and he pecked the whole thing down in a few bites. He got his usual 2 popsicles for dessert, which made his tail feathers puff with happiness. The nutrient tube got kicked to a corner at the base of his rock. In cell 5, Songming kept his back to the door as always. "Leave it," his cool voice drifted over. After I left, he turned around, checked that I was gone, picked up the sandwich, and took a bite. His fish tail swayed once under the water. The nutrient tube sat on the pool's edge, never opened. All 5 S-rank nutrient tubes were left behind. Every single one. Meanwhile, out in the hallway, the wolf was sprawled in front of cell 1's glass wall, gnawing on a lamb leg I had roasted just for him. That morning, almost an hour of slow roasting, crispy golden skin, tender meat that pulled apart in strings, coated in cumin, chili powder, and pepper salt, still sizzling with oil. The smell filled the entire corridor. He had chosen his spot very carefully, right in front of Jingyao's window, close enough that the white tiger's nose was practically pressed against the glass. The wolf placed the lamb leg between his front paws, licked the cumin seeds off the surface first, then elegantly tore off a long strip of crispy meat and crunched it loudly, with his head tilted back. After each bite, he licked the grease from his lips and locked eyes with Jingyao through the glass, his blue-gray gaze radiating the most shameless, bratty smugness. Jingyao stood behind the glass, his massive white tiger body perfectly still, amber pupils slightly constricted. His sandwich had vanished in 2 bites. He refused to touch the nutrient tube. Before my cooking, he had tolerated it fine. After 3 days of real food, the meat-flavored paste smelled like wet cardboard. And now his own former subordinate, his general, was sitting right in front of him devouring a greasy roasted lamb leg, chewing louder with every bite. Perhaps he should look into the command structure at the Northern Defense Line. His general was here living the good life. Was his brother Yu Ming handling things alone up there? Maybe he should file a report recommending they send the wolf back. Jingyao walked to the communication panel in the corner of his cell, pressed the button with his tiger paw, and called Lu Yu. "Colonel Lu," his deep voice rumbled. "Effective today, stop delivering my nutrient tubes. Whatever Yitang eats, I eat. Double the meat. Bill it to my personal account." Lu Yu did not even look up from his paperwork. He pushed his glasses and replied in his usual calm tone. "Understood. Processing now." It was not surprising at all. He had seen my cooking with his own eyes, seen the collapse value curve shift after the prisoners ate it, and he was the only person in the entire prison who had witnessed the wolf eating a lamb leg in the hallway. Now it made sense. Jingyao's sudden request for meal upgrades was almost certainly connected to the lamb leg show. After hanging up, Lu Yu filled out the transfer forms and salary adjustments. When he finished, he realized something he had not consciously noticed. In just 3 days, this was the 3rd time he had processed a raise or bonus for me. He paused, stared at my profile photo on the screen for 1 second, and went back to work. I was crouching in the yard flipping chicken wings on the grill when my communicator buzzed. I wiped the oil off my fingers and opened the message, then froze like someone had hit my pause button. 1 million star coins deposited. Sender: Marshal Jingyao. Personal account. Note: meal expenses, prepared to Warden Yi Tang's personal dining standard, double meat portions. Right below it was a work message from Lu Yu. Warden Yi, effective today, cell 1 no longer requires nutrient tube delivery. The Marshal's daily meals will match your own eating standard. Cook whatever you eat. Give him double. Fees prepaid. I stared at all those zeros. The chicken wing almost fell out of my mouth. Yesterday's catnip sale for 500,000 had already shown me how rich this empire was. But 1 million for meal fees? In my old life, 7 years of coding had not earned me half that amount. Now I was getting 1 million just to cook for Jing Yao, paid in advance. I took a deep breath, set my chicken wing down on the plate, jumped to my feet, and pumped both fists into the air. Yes, boss. Mission accepted. I spent the whole afternoon roasting. 2 lamb legs side by side on the grill, a full row of lamb ribs next to them, charcoal burning low and slow underneath. The legs were too big to rush. I kept the temperature down and turned the skewer slowly, brushing honey water over the surface so it caramelized into a sweet, spicy, crunchy shell mixed with cumin and chili. The wolf lay at my feet the entire time, eyes glued to the grill. I gave him a rib to taste first. His tongue flicked, bones crunched, gone. Then he went back to staring. By 4 in the afternoon, everything was done. I packed Jing Yao's portion into a massive thermal box from my camping gear. 2 lamb legs, 8 ribs, and an extra-large bundle of catnip.
No nutrientube.
The box was big enough for a whole roast sheep, perfect for a white tiger marshal's afternoon snack. I loaded his box onto a separate cart, then prepared the other 4 portions. Catnip, as usual, fresh vegetable salads made with lettuce and tomatoes from my spirit farm, and 1 nutrient tube each. I changed my delivery order too, going from cell 5 down to 2 first, saving Jing Yao's special cart for last.
Cell 5.
Song Ming kept his back to me, but tilted his head slightly, showing half his cold profile and 1 deep blue eye that glanced at the salad. I set it down, told him vegetables were for vitamins, and left. After I was gone, he turned around, opened the box, stared at the green lettuce and red cherry tomatoes for a few seconds, then pinched a leaf and put it in his mouth. Cell 4. Shi-hung tilted his head at the salad, but snatched it up quickly. The nutrient tube got kicked to the corner, as usual. Cell 3. Ling showed Dove from his perch, landed on the stone platform, and scanned his tray. Catnip, vegetable salad, nutrient tube. He looked at it twice, then raised his head and stared through the glass at me, pushing my cart onward. He had seen everything. He had watched me push a separate, oversized cart into cell 1 earlier, watched me pull out roasted lamb legs and ribs, watched Jing Yao bury his face in meat, and not come up for air since. And his tray had grass, salad, and that cursed nutrient tube. His call bell rang sharp and fast. I had just finished delivering to Hangzhou and was heading back when I heard it. I walked over and saw Ling Shou standing on the stone platform behind the glass, wings slightly spread, hawk eyes drilling into me, his entire aura screaming for words. I am not happy. Bean Sprout, his voice was cold and cutting. Why is mine different from his? I leaned on the cart handle and looked up at him, calm and honest. Because he paid free-range chicken. He choked. Not because of the paid part. Because of those last 3 words. Free-range chicken. Him. The young lord of the Sky Feather Falcon clan, S-rank, one of the fastest flyers in the Empire. A free-range chicken. Those fat things that scratch dirt and peck bugs in the yard. Can I not eat first and pay after? His voice had a grinding edge to it. He was a clan heir. Since hatching, everything he wanted came with 1 word. Nobody had ever told him to pay before eating. I pushed the cart forward 1/2 meter, turned around with my hands on my hips, craned my neck up at him, and fired back. I am afraid you will skip the bill. He laughed in disbelief. Skip the bill? Nobody had ever dared question his credit. He looked down at the female who did not even reach his standing height, arguing with him with puffed cheeks and 0 fear. Interesting. Very interesting. This young lord never skips a bill. He jumped down from the platform, stood at the glass, and looked down at me with a half-smiling hawk gaze. Bring the meat first and the money. Before he could finish, a crisp ding came from cell 4 next door. Shi-hung had somehow opened his communication panel, pecked the buttons with his beak, and said a few words into the speaker. A minute later, my communicator buzzed. A transfer notification from Luyu. Shi-hung was lounging on his stone mountain with an ice pop stick in his beak, his red tail feathers swaying lazily over the edge, watching Ling Shou argue with me through the glass with the happiest spectator face a bird could make. And in cell 2, Hangzhou moved even faster than Shi-hung. While I was still yelling, free-range chicken, at Ling Shou, my communicator buzzed again. A second transfer from Luyu.
Ans ous me al fas.
The note said, no nutrient tube. Today's supply will do. Normal service starts tomorrow. I looked up at cell 2. Hanzhou's black shape stood behind the glass, pale gold panther eyes calm, and he gave me the tiniest nod, so small I would have missed it if I had not been looking right at him. I instantly abandoned my fight with Ling Shou. I was a professional. When a client pays, service starts immediately. I dug out 2 thermal boxes from under the cart, reached into my space supermarket at mental speed, and pulled out packs of ready-to-eat chicken breast, some plain, some black pepper flavored. I split them into 2 portions. Then I thought about it and added a box of strawberry ice cream to Chi-Heng's share. He loved the popsicles last time, so this was an upgrade. Cell 2 first. I opened the door, brought the chicken to Hanzhou, and said apologetically, Commander Han, I am out of roast meat today. Please make do with this. I will make it up to you tomorrow. He sniffed the chicken, picked up a black pepper packet, and retreated to his corner. Acceptance confirmed. He tore the package neatly, and when he chewed, his panther ears pressed back slightly, and his tail swept the floor once. Cell 4 next. I handed Chi-Heng the chicken and the strawberry ice cream. The instant he saw the strawberry picture on the box, his tail feathers puffed out a full size bigger. He carefully pecked the lid open, took 1 bite of pink ice cream, and his whole bird body froze for a moment. His body temperature actually dropped a fraction of a degree, not from the cold, but from the sweetness. Strawberry, sweet, icy, creamy. He dove in for a second huge bite, tail feathers wagging harder than the wolf's tail. In cell 3, Ling Shou watched all of this and lost it. Bean Sprout. His wings spread involuntarily, every silver-gray feather standing on end, a sharp falcon cry piercing through the glass with an unmistakable crack of someone whose pride had just been broken. Who stops an argument halfway to go deliver food to someone else. Free-range chicken wants meat, free-range chicken pays first. I rolled my eyes at him on my way out. Bean Sprout, you. My eye roll made him even angrier. He stood behind the glass, hawk eyes wide with fury. Pay first, all she thought about was money. His credit was worth more than all of theirs put together. He was a clan heir with assets no smaller than Hanzhou's. He just had not gotten around to paying yet, and she had actually left him here for money. Everyone else was eating. His tray had a lonely salad and a nutrient tube. He folded his wings, jumped back to his highest perch, and watched from above as my small figure pushed the empty cart down the hallway. Make him bow his head?
Impossible.
He was the young lord of the Sky Feather Falcon clan. From the day he hatched, the world bent to him. He did not bend to anyone. After Jing Yao, Hanzhou, and Chi-Heng all paid their meal fees, my kitchen operation leveled up dramatically. With millions of star coins sitting in my account, I felt I owed my sponsors some real effort. I raided my space supermarket properly this time. Full racks of lamb ribs, beautifully marbled steaks, honey-glazed pork ribs, salmon, prawns, scallops, oysters, even pre-shucked garlic butter oysters sitting in ice trays ready to cook. I settled into a daily routine. Jing Yao was all about meat. Lamb legs, lamb ribs, and steaks rotating every day, portions as big as he wanted. Hanzhou preferred poultry and red meat, so I rotated chicken breast, roast drumsticks, and steaks for him. Chi-Heng was not picky about meat but was obsessed with sweets, so every delivery included a popsicle or ice cream on the side. I pushed 3 carts through the hallway every day, and cells 1, 2, and 4 had spreads worthy of a banquet table. After delivering to those 3, I always had leftover scraps or extra meat. Following my sacred rule of never wasting food, I packed the extras up and brought them to Tsongming in cell 5. The first couple of days, I sent him lamb ribs and pan-fried steak. He ate them, but not much. He nibbled 2 ribs and took a few bites of steak, then left the rest sitting on the tray. I noticed. This merman did not like red meat. It made sense. He was a sea creature. Making a fish eat lamb every day was like making a land animal live on seaweed. I started experimenting with his menu. First attempt, salmon sashimi. The fillets from my space supermarket were perfectly cut, orange and white marbling like polished marble. I arranged a full plate with small dishes of soy sauce and wasabi on the side. When Song-Ming saw the salmon, his body, which was always turned away from the door, shifted just slightly toward me. He still said nothing, but that plate was licked clean. Even the soy sauce dish was scraped empty. I understood. Second attempt. Garlic roasted oysters. The pre-shucked ones came with garlic sauce already on them. I put them on the grill at high heat for 5 minutes until the garlic turned golden, the oyster edges curled, and the juices bubbled inside the shells. I made 2 big plates. One went to Jing Yao as a side dish. The other I packed separately for Song-Ming. When I walked into cell 5, he sat at the pool's edge with his back to me as usual, tail drifting in the water, hair hanging behind him, radiating his standard do not disturb coldness. I set the oyster plate on the stone platform, but this time I placed it deliberately far away, far enough that he would have to turn around and reach to get it. Then I stepped back and waited. He waited too. When he did not hear me leave, he turned his head slightly. His eyes caught the plate. Not lamb, not steak, not chicken. Oysters. The garlic fragrance mixed with the briny sweetness of the shellfish drifted through the damp air into his nose. One silent moment. Then he turned, reached for the plate with long fingers, picked up a shell, and tipped the oyster meat and garlic into his mouth. He stopped completely. Sea folk ate raw fish, raw shrimp, shellfish, and seaweed in the ocean. On land they ate nutrient paste. Nobody had ever thought to take something from the sea and roast it with fire and seasoning and turn it into this. The garlic was toasty, the oyster silky, salty sweet with a lingering warmth. It tasted nothing like seawater, but every bite reminded him this came from the sea. This was the taste of home. He finished one without a word. Then a second. A third. When the plate was empty, he still said nothing. He just tapped a few times on his communicator. My communicator buzzed. I looked down. 2 million star coins deposited.
Sender, Kang Ming.
Note none. 2 million, no explanation. I looked up at him. He had already set the plate back, turned around, tail swaying slowly in the water. His back as cold and untouchable as ever, as if those 2 million had nothing to do with him. I looked at that proud back, then at the long string of zeros on my screen. I took a deep breath, stood straight, pressed my hands to my sides, and gave him a perfect 90-degree bow. Boss is generous. He did not turn around, but his fish tail slapped the water surface once, sending up a small splash. From that day on, seafood became a permanent part of my menu. Salmon sashimi, garlic oysters, salt-roasted prawns, butter-seared scallops, seaweed salad, rotating daily for cell 5. Song-Ming never spoke while eating, but every plate came back empty. The peaceful harmony of cell 5 stood in sharp contrast to cell 3. Ling Shou still had only nutrient paste and catnip. It was not that I was targeting him or holding a grudge. I consider myself a professional worker with solid ethics. Pay me and I deliver. The problem was that Ling Shou had not paid a single coin. The catnip I gave him every day was grown in my own garden, harvested by my own hands, provided for free. Calculated at Lu Yu's buying price, this Falcon Lord had already freeloaded several bundles worth 500,000 each. And instead of being grateful, he argued with me every single delivery. Free-range chicken, here is your nutrient tube. I pushed the tray through the slot. Catnip and paste. I did not even bother making him a salad. Bean sprout, what did you roast for Jing Yao today? He stood on his perch, hawk eyes drilling into me. None of your business. You did not pay. This young lord said he could eat first and pay after. I am afraid you will skip the bill. I am the young lord of the Sky Feather Falcon clan. Would I skip your bill? Then pay up, and he would freeze. It was not about money. His account balance was bigger than everything I owned combined. But he refused to pay. The reasons were complicated. First, he felt he was the only one being treated differently. The other for all got upgrades. Why should he have to buy his way in? Second, he was a clan lord. Being chased for money by a small female was beneath his dignity. If word got out, how would he hold his head up in the Falcon clan? Third, and most importantly, he liked arguing with me. Every day, when I pushed the cart past cell 3, those few minutes were the least boring part of his whole day. My eyes got bright when I argued. My cheeks puffed out. My words were sharp and mean, but never truly cruel. When I lost a round, I never held a grudge. The next day I would show up cheerful as ever and call him free-range chicken again. He did not dislike the feeling, but he would never admit it. Just you wait, he snapped, snatching the catnip and nutrient tube, flying back to the top perch. Tomorrow I will throw the money in your face. The next day, his tray was still nutrient paste and catnip. Where is your money? Forgot. Forgot means you do not have any free-range chicken. Bean sprout. Another day. Did you pay today? Tomorrow. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. There are so many tomorrows. Where did you learn to talk like that? 9 years of mandatory education taught me. You illiterate bird. He stamped his feet on the metal perch, so hard it clanged. Illiterate bird. She called him an illiterate bird. He was educated by the Empire's finest tutors, fluent in 3 languages, capable of reading the most advanced battle maps. And in her mouth, he was an illiterate bird. But he truly did not know the old saying about tomorrows, and this female kept firing words he had never heard before. Free-range chicken, illiterate bird, 9 years of mandatory education. Every term was so new he had no comeback. He stood on his perch and watched my small figure push the cart away. A few silver-gray falcon feathers drifted down from his ruffled wings. Tomorrow he would definitely win 1 round. Ling Shou stood on his perch, looking down at his lunch tray. A bundle of catnip, a nutrient tube, and a vegetable salad. Again. Lettuce, cherry tomatoes, a few cucumber slices, no dressing, nothing. He was a raptor. The Sky Feather Falcon clan ruled the skies. Their diet was mountain goat, snow rabbit, and tribute livestock from other tribes. Vegetables were what goats ate. He ate the goats. And this bean sprout was feeding him like a chicken. I had just reached cell 3 when the call bell went off. Not one press, but a rapid-fire stream like Morse code. He stood on the stone platform inside, wings slightly spread, hawk eyes full of protest. He pecked the edge of the tray and shoved it toward the delivery slot with perfect aim. The plate clinked against the metal frame. Bean sprout, explain this. Explain what? What is this? He pointed a wingtip at the salad. Vegetable salad. You do not recognize it, I said without flinching. It is for vitamins. You eat meat every day. You need greens. I am a raptor. I know you are a raptor, but raptors need balanced nutrition too. Look at you. Your feathers are not as shiny as before. Definitely vitamin deficiency. He looked down at his wings. His silver-gray plumage was sleek and gleaming, catching the simulated sunlight with a metallic sheen, every flight feather razor-sharp and perfectly groomed. He could have been on an Imperial military recruitment poster. Not shiny? He had just preened yesterday. He snapped his head up to argue, but I was already pushing the cart toward cell 4. Over in cell 4, Chi Hung was happily tearing open a chocolate ice cream wrapper with his beak. Beside it sat a plate of honey-glazed chicken wings and a big bowl of fruit salad with strawberries, watermelon, melon cubes, and drizzled condensed milk. Ling Shou looked at his bland lettuce leaves and cherry tomatoes, then at Chi Heng's condensed milk fruit salad. The frustration in his hawk eyes was about to overflow. He took a deep breath and swallowed it. There was still the evening delivery. He would deal with it then. At dinner, I pushed an even bigger cart through the hallway. Grilled steak for Jing Yao, black pepper drumsticks for Hanzhou, a mixed grill platter with vanilla ice cream for Chi Hung, garlic roasted prawns, and seaweed soup for Songming. Every prisoner had a custom menu, and the whole corridor smelled incredible. Then I stopped at cell 3 and pushed in a tray. Catnip. Nutrient tube. That was it. Ling Shou stared at the tray for several long seconds, then hit the call bell. I leaned on the cart handle with my arms crossed and looked at him through the glass. Where is my salad? You did not eat it at lunch. If you do not eat it, I am not going to waste it. I gave it to Chi Hung as an extra. He choked. He had not eaten the salad because he thought it was chicken feed. Now he did not even have the chicken feed. Chi Hung poked his head around from next door, half a grilled chicken wing dangling from his beak, his bird face radiating pure schadenfreude. Bean sprout. Ling Shou took a deep breath. You are getting personal revenge. What revenge? This is called distribution based on demand. You do not eat greens, I give the greens to someone who does. Is there a problem? Not eating greens does not mean you can stop feeding me. Is the nutrient tube not food? Is the catnip not food? I counted on my fingers. Imperial Issue Nutrient Solution S-Rank Special Supply. People out there would kill for a taste. Catnip, freshly picked. Ask Jing Yao and the others if they do not live on this stuff every day. I gave you both. And you say I am not feeding you. He found himself logically cornered with no way out. His wings opened and closed. His hawk eyes churned with comebacks, but every one crumbled before it reached his lips. Finally, he jumped down from the perch, stood at the glass, looked down at me, and switched tactics. What exactly do I have to do to get you to cook for me properly? Pay. Besides paying, not negotiable. He spun around in fury, flew back to the top of his perch, turned his back on me, and folded his wings tight. A single silver-gray flight feather drifted down and landed on the stone platform. Evidence of a lost argument. I pushed the empty cart out and was passing cell 4 when Chi-Hing called out to me. He had shifted to human form. His eyes were the same crimson red as his beast form, pupils faintly glowing. Fair skin, bold and handsome features, brows tilted up at the ends with an air of untamed wildness. He wore a dark red robe hanging loosely open, showing a hint of dark red feather markings spreading below his collarbone. He still held his unfinished chocolate ice cream, leaning lazily against the observation wall, and lifted his chin at Ling Shou through the glass. Honestly, what is the point of picking fights with the little warden every day? Chi-Hing bit his ice cream, voice dripping with glee. Ling Shou had also shifted to human form on his side. Silver-gray hair tied back, a few loose strands over his forehead, features cold and sharp as a blade, thin lips pressed tight, silver-gray eyes narrowed at Chi-Hing. He wore a sleeveless silver-gray tunic showing lean, hard-cut arms, skin a shade darker than Chi-Hing's, his whole presence like a knife-honed paper-thin. He stood at the glass with arms crossed, facing Chi-Hing across the hallway. She called me a free-range chicken, a flat-feathered bird, and an illiterate. You call her bean sprout too, do you not? Chi-Hing licked his ice cream. Am I wrong? She is that small. Ling Shou held his hand flat just below his chest, roughly where my head would reach. Chi-Hing tilted his head, chewed a bite of ice cream, and mumbled. She is not wrong either. You do have feathers. You are flat-feathered. You are a bird. Free-range chicken, you did walk around on the ground for several laps this afternoon. She is technically correct. Ling Shou turned slowly to face him, silver-gray eyes burning with 2 dangerous flames. Come here. Let us fight. Brute, Ling Shou thought he misheard. His pupils dilated for an instant, then refocused. What did you say? Brute. Chi-Hing popped the ice cream stick into his mouth and leaned against the glass, crimson eyes radiating clueless innocence. You want to fight over everything. If that is not a brute, what is? Ling Shou took a deep breath. He admitted his temper was not great. Falcons were raptors, and raptors were born aggressive. But when it came to being a brute, who in the entire empire was more of a brute than the firebird standing right in front of him? Chi-Hing of the Vermilion Bird Clan S+ rank, picked fights with other males every other day, brawled his way from the southern frontier to the northern border, from the eastern sea to the western territories. If he could punch it, he would never think about it. If he wanted something, he grabbed it. He punched his own clan elders. Male, female, he did not care. Zero grace. The Empire's officially recognized number 1 brute. His military personality file literally said, extremely combative, recommend avoiding unsupervised contact with fighters of equal or lower rank, and now this number 1 brute was standing there with an ice cream stick in his mouth, head tilted, calling him a brute with a completely straight face. Chi-Hing, Ling Shou pressed the call button and spoke into the communicator, each word precise. You, a firebird who has fought his way from the southern frontier to the western territories, who punches anyone he does not like, who has even hit his own clan elders. What right do you have to call me a brute? Chi-Hing blinked. His brain processed this information noticeably slower than normal conversation speed. The Vermilion Bird way of thinking was always direct. He fought first and considered consequences never. Ling Shou had just said a very long sentence, and he needed time to digest it. After a good while, he made what he considered a perfectly logical response. I am not fighting you right now. You are the one who wanted to fight me first. So you're the brute. You. Also, Chi Hung stuffed the last bite of ice cream into his mouth, chewed twice, swallowed, and pointed next door. I paid the little warden for meals. You did not. I eat chocolate ice cream.
You eat nutrient paste.
I eat fruit salad. You do not even get vegetable salad. Does that not prove everything? The veins on Ling Shou's fist stood out. For the first time in his life, someone had shut him down with the logic of, you did not pay so you deserve it. And the one doing it was Chi Hung, the universally acknowledged #1 brute. Something was deeply wrong with this world. Just you wait, Ling Shou pointed at Chi Hung. The fire in his silver-gray eyes compressed to a breaking point. When the bean sprout comes to deliver tomorrow, I will throw money in her face. Then you will not be the only one with ice cream. Oh, Chi Hung produced a new ice cream from inside his robe, vanilla this time, and slowly peeled off the wrapper. Good luck with that. Ling Shou turned and punched the stone platform.